Check, check, check. Hello, hello. Ah, there we go. Hold me close now, time to dance. That's what I heard to get some coffee this morning. Had a busy day today. Hold me close now, Tony Danza. Had a busy day today. What's up, Blake? What's up, Wayne? See you too. See you. Oh, man. What's going on? Sean from How to RPG and Gaming and BS. Saturdays with Sean, where I talk about tabletop RPGs, stuff that's going on, whatever comes to mind. I get on here with help from the chat, and you have an interesting discussion, although sometimes it may be relatively one way. I'm not unaware of that. Okay. Hey, Roger, Kevin, good to see you. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Hold me close now, time to dance. Probably get a DMCA takedown. Sound just like him, right? Just like him. Right. I hope this video finds you well and gaming. Bad habit. Another bad habit. Oh, we're going to drink a little soda now. Hey, Jim. I figured what I'd do to this morning when I'm recording this, I don't even need to know what time it is ask you, as people file in, and I posted this on the Gaming and BS Discord, as well as the Gaming and BS forums. What? Forums? I thought those things went gone. Bye-bye. No. Jim helped me restore them. Thanks, Jim. Personal shout out to Jim I. Jim is a member of the Gaming and BS community who probably saved me a full 8 hours of poking around the internet to get the forums up and running after I purposely nuked them, because I thought nuking them might be actually faster way to update them, because they were really far behind. Next time I'll be a little bit more delicate, and I'll have a more recent backup in case I have to nuke them again. So going back to the forums and Discord, I posted, and on Twitter. Twitter is kind of blown up, actually. Not blowing up. I mean, it is for me, because we don't get a lot of trafficky stuff going on. And I happen to do it through the Gaming and BS Twitter account because, well, we have more people that follow us there. But what I proposed as the question du jour yesterday was, are you ready for it? Are you ready? What RPGs are you going to do your damnedest to play and run? Play and or run in 2022 that you didn't get to in 2021? And so far, it's chugging away. Actually, I think I retweeted my own tweet to get a little more traffic, maybe? depends on where everybody's responding, and there's some are responding off others, but 53 responses. That's high for 39 likes. So getting some traction all over the board, right? I had one that was like any RPG, which was like the only one that said any RPG, and after I was like, huh? Explained how unfortunate of a year 2021 was for him, because I think he got his house or car or wherever he was storing some of his RPGs and was broken into. So I'm like, man, that sucks. I hope 2022 treats you better. But most of them are all over the place. There's some heavy, there's a list of like, one guy was quite ambitious, listed probably 15 different RPGs. Mostly indie based, but nonetheless, because some of those you can knock out, right? If you're like one RPG and it's a one session, or it shines in a one session kind of, in a one session setting? No. In a one session session? No. In a single session? Whatever. You know what I'm talking about. You know. You could probably get through quite a few, but some of these are hard to get a feel for whether they're a good fit for you, or they're hard to determine where the system or the setting shines if you're only playing a one shot. We've probably mentioned Delta Green before, right? Some of the bonds that come into play, and some of the times when characters are through, or not, maybe between sessions. Maybe they go to a therapist, that there's mechanics that facilitate some things when they go to a therapist, if they divulge the things that they've gone through as a Delta Green agent, and in a one shot, some of that stuff just doesn't come through. So Wayne says, I really want to try short campaign, 6 games of Burning Wheel. Burning Wheel. Got to go round. It's Saturday with Sean the Musical today, I think, maybe. Burning Wheel. That's woo. Yeah, Luke Crane. Crunch. I had it. I never played it. I tried reading it. Didn't even get through reading all of it. Joe Swick, morning to you. Top of the morning. Kevin Keneally, I'd love to play or run the Black Hack. Harrigan's got that on the list, Kevin. I don't know if you've signed up and expressed interest in that. The list I'm talking about, for those of you that are not in the know, is at Gaming and BS. We have a sign-up sheet for game masters and players that want to play different games. So if you're not familiar with that, you go to gamingandbs.com/games, and it'll take you to a forum post that'll outline the details. And it's basically GMs that are willing to say, hey, I like these are my 4 games, or I like these, I'm like this game a lot. I want to expose people to it. And they put it on the list, and then people sign up, and then they muster, and then they run it. So anyways, what games are you looking forward to getting to the table? You're going to do whatever it takes to get it to the table in 2022. Like do or die that you did not get to the table in 2021. And what I'm doing on the Twitters and the Discord is to record some of these. So I use Instapaper. If you haven't used Instapaper, it's an interesting app. It's web. I think it's cross-platform. I know it's for Mac, but nonetheless, it's a browser plugin, so I don't know why it wouldn't work for Windows. Instapaper is just a, hey, save this kind of app. That's all. Very light. And so what I did was I created a folder that's called Tweet This December 17th, 2022. And every response that I'm getting, I'm just saving it to that list, that kind of folder in Instapaper. And then I have a calendar event. If you guessed for December 17th, 2022, you would be right. Ding, ding, ding. And I'm going to go back to these people and say, hey, The only thing I'm worried about is I don't know if the tweets are they available after a year? I don't even know. I would think so. I'm not sure. Anyways, I hope they are, because then I'm going to just retweet off of him and respond and say, hey, you said you were going to get these to the table. Did you do it? And see what they have to say. See their responses. I'll probably be blown away. Like, this guy freaking kept track of a freaking tweet for a year. It's not that hard. So you're probably wondering what I'm drinking. Nah, just kidding. Probably wondering what I would want to get to the table in 2022. And I gotta say, I haven't thought about it much. And I wish I kept the one from last year, because I know there were games on that list that I wanted to get to the table in 2021 that I did not. Cold Shadows is always there. Man, I just tweeted I just released a YouTube short. I think it was episode, I want to say 193 from Gaming NBS, where Brett and I talked about Cold Shadows. I could probably Google it and find it pretty quick to confirm that, but 193. We're going to be recording 370, 370, I think 370 or 371 this coming Monday as of this recording. Monday, December 21. I think is the next Monday, 20th. So the reason I bring that up is Cold Shadows, man, I have had forever. I talk about it and mention it probably once a quarter, when nothing's going on. I don't know how I'm going to run it, though, because I don't know if it's supported through a virtual tabletop. So I would have to kind of cobble things together, because there is a pool involved. So it's a give a little, take a little pool that occurs during gameplay. And that's, virtual tabletops can be a little tricky with those. I imagine I would just probably put tokens on the table and, okay, do this, do that. And that's a game where you need to run more than one session to really get the bang for your buck out of it, because there are things that carry over from one session to the other, which is like that. The pool piece, which is the mechanic is escaping my brain at the moment. But it's based if you don't remember Cold Shadows, it's based off Houses of the Blooded by John Wick. It's a D6 mechanic, D6 die pool. And the target number is always 11, and you add your dice up. And that's kind of the core mechanic. And there are aspects that you have tied to your character. And with those, hey, if you can implement the aspect into what you're doing, then you get an extra die. So you're kind of leveraging components of your character's traits and the agency that they're affiliated with, because that agency gives you aspects as well. And then you might have a core ability that gives you like 2 dice. So you want to build your dice pool. Well, somebody's going to say, well, if the target number is 11 and you build your dice pool up to like 4 or 5, it's probably pretty hard not to hit 11. Then what you do is you use that's what I was looking for. Use wagers. So when you use wagers, you're kind of putting a little bit more risk in your risk and reward up for the situation. So if you put in, you could wage certain amount of dice. So say you build your dice pool up to like 7 dice. Well, you think you could probably hit 11 with 5. So you're going to wage 2 of those. And for each wager that each die that you wage, set aside for a wager, then you get to narrate even more of the scene and contribute more. So that's where the risk comes in. Because somebody would just say, well, why would I ever want to, why would I ever do that? Because I'll just succeed anyway when I have 6 or 7 dice. Well, that's because you get more boons, what have you. So that's kind of the core mechanic. And then when you have that, I think there's risk. Is it risk? There's certain tokens that kind of come and go too. So anyways, not to get into Cold Shadows, but I got to get that thing to the table. I would say, some of my must go to at the table 2022 are Cold Shadows, Twilight 2000, I don't know if we should limit it. There's a ton of other ones. Those are two. Probably have to look at my shelf, right? I want them to be ones that people that you haven't played. Like, I played it 10 years ago and I want to get it back to the table. Well, maybe 10 years. Maybe there's a length of time that's lapsed that's acceptable as an answer or to accept answers. Cold Shadows, Twilight 2000, maybe Tales from the Loop or Symbaroom. Shocker. I'm a big Free League fan. Blade Runner is going to be coming out. I don't know if it's going to come out in 2022. I think they said, yeah, it's happening, but they're probably going to kickstart it. They'll kickstart it, then they got to produce it, and then they got to ship it. I mean, I don't know, like when that thing would actually hit my desk. Those are two for sure. Talking about games that you gotta get to that you're gonna do whatever it takes to get to your table in 2022, either virtually or in person, that you haven't got to the table in 2021. And this could be something that's coming out that you're waiting for, right? Cyberg might be one. That's the cyberpunk version of Morkborg. Might be another one. I don't know if I'll buy Blade Runner. Well, probably will. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. There's Toxic Cortex, which reminds me I should probably look that over, since a few weeks ago I was talking about Cortex and their license. I did not see whether, I think they must have come to the table. Going back to Cortex, we had a morning here where I talked about the license that they put out for the community, and we were talking about, well, can you license mechanics and rules and things of that nature? And some people were kind of up in arms over the license because it sounded more restrictive, or they wanted more control over your own work. But they were going to have another follow-up to it to explain some of the details of the license, and I can't remember if that's come out. Regardless, what RPG are you going to get to the table in 2022? Don't get crazy. Like, don't list 10 if you know you can't get 10 to the table, right? Let's be realistic here. Set realistic expectations. Let's set some realistic goals, ladies and gentlemen. Okay? Let's not bite off more than we could chew. Pick off 2 or 3. And keep in mind, if you're playing a single game, like, maybe it's D&D 5e or Forbidden Lands or something, and you're in a campaign and that campaign's kind of going well, and you figure that you're going to be playing that for at least 6 more months or whatever, and you maybe only meet once a month, and you're in the middle of a game, well, that game may take up your entire year. So let's be reasonable. Let's think about this for a second. Maybe it's 2 or 3, maybe it's 1 that you're going to really try to. Depends on your situation. But I would probably say, for sure, Cold Shadows, Twilight 2000. Looking over my shoulder because I have books on the shelf that I might catch my eye. Yep. Temples and Tombs, maybe? I don't know, maybe. I don't know. I think those are the good ones, big ones. And whatever else pops up and tickles my fancy. What are you going to do different in 2022? This is the end of the year, right? We've gone around the sun. It's about that time. It's the anniversary for the orbital once around the sun here on Third Rock. What are you going to do different in 2022 in RPGs? What are you going to try to do? You're going to try to play more? You're going to try to play less? You're going to try to play more and GM less? You want to try GMing more? Do you want to try a different style? Do you want to try a different game kind of mechanics, system, things of that nature? A light went off. Is there anything that you're going to do differently? Maybe you do more miniatures. Maybe you paint more. Maybe you do some more homebrew. Anything that you're thinking, well, 2022, man, might be a time to clear the desk and try something new, whatever that is. Could be anything. Be interested to know. Me, besides the games that I want to get to the table, I want to definitely hit this platform a little bit harder, a little bit more serious, see if I can get kind of a cadence going. Podcasting, for those of you that might have joined that aren't familiar with how to RPG and myself, I've done a podcast with Brett, my co-host on Gaming and BS, for over 7 years now. And man, the YouTube account on that show has just been pummeled. I was going over this with my buddy Harrigan the other day and comparing numbers for how to RPG and Gaming and BS. And it's just crazy. Like, I put up some videos with just audio and just tanked Gaming and BS YouTube channel. Just tanked it. It's I don't even know if it's recoverable. People are like, what do you mean tanked? YouTube doesn't like it if you put up a video with no moving pictures. How can you put up a video with no moving pictures, Sean? You put up audio only and then just put album art up. They hate it. That algorithm just put us at the bottom. And so the amount of time and the amount of content that's on that channel compared to this one is like night and day. But if you put the numbers right next to each other, you would have thought they would have launched around the same time. Just crazy. Because How to RPG's been around for just over a year, and I haven't put a lot of effort into it. So I just bring this up just because I do like to see how these things work. Like, it really fascinates me when I see somebody on Twitter who's just kind of a normal Twitter account. And I say normal as in they're not an actor, they're not a producer, they don't work in Hollywood, they don't have a already made, that I know of, community, and they've got like 11,000 followers. It's like, not that I'm envious necessarily, but I'm like, how do they get there? Like, what was it that made them get there? And somebody would say, well, it's just hard work. And I'm not taking that away. This isn't like, hey, I'm going to try to get there as quickly as can and get, the get rich scheme and passive income, and I could just set this up and I could be set for life. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking to do the work and put in the effort. But I'm just like, I also don't want to put in the work and effort and go at nowhere. So I'm going to probably look at this channel. I mentioned this last week on what I might be looking at. I don't know if it's doable. The whole Game Master. I'm going to call it probably the Game Master series, where I sit down with a Game Master and go over an actual play that they've probably run and ask them questions about why they made the decisions they did and what was going through their brains, as a method of helping other Game Masters, and give maybe a touch of actual play. Anyways, that's what I'm probably looking at. I'd like to do some more actual play myself. It's funny because I'm not a big actual play guy. Like, I don't watch actual plays like, oh, I got to go and watch these guys every week as they go through this huge, long 18-month campaign. I've listened to some because I could cook and do different stuff while I'm listening. But I don't typically watch a lot of actual plays. And there's some very good, well-produced ones, and there's ones that are just terrible. And I think that's with anything in the creative side. So I would like to start doing some of those, and probably some shorter campaign arcs, right? 3 to 6 sessions, done. Record it, put it out there, and that's it. So we'll see. That's some of the things that are going through my brain, which may be just enough. Like, when you do actual play, It's easy, just, okay, we'll get together, hit record, put it out there, fine. I don't necessarily want to just do that. And then when you talk about actual plays, there's do you explain the mechanics? How much do you explain it? And then when you do explain it, do you keep explaining that and announcing it like, all right, give me a check. In this, what he's referring to is adding this number and that number, and then they roll the dice. That's what they're doing right now. The result is a 14. Okay, great. I don't know if I would get into the nuances that deep, but I also don't want it to be a complete radio drama. But I think there could be some things you can implement into an actual play that makes it a little immersive. I don't know, sound effects, if they're done correctly, maybe. I think that's what I would see in 2022. That would be my hope and ambition. So we'll see. I'm still not playing in person. Notice that is not one of the things at the top of my list. I would like to get to a game convention in person. Speaking of game conventions, before I forget that lose that train of thought, Alex, is it Alex Capero? Oh man, damn. What's Alex's last name? Alex from Crafty Games is running 3 sessions of Spycraft 3rd edition at GaryCon. So if I could get there, that would be fantastic. Because the funny thing about, not the funny thing, but the ironic thing about it is I was on Twitter and I saw him post this, which is unusual. I don't think he's overly active on Twitter. Like, I don't see Alex pop up in our stream very often. And frankly, I don't know if he's been in the RPG space like he used to be, because in his Twitter byline, here it is, Alex Flagg. It says is back to making games. So I don't know if he removed himself from the hobby for a while. I know that it was never, as far as I know, I don't think it was ever a really big full-time thing for him. It's not, mostly for small publishers. But, one thing that oh boogers. One thing about Crafty Games is they were so focused on Mistborn for so long. And I wasn't a Mistborn, I'm not a Brandon Sanderson. So if you're not familiar with Mistborn, it's based off the setting of Brandon Sanderson, who I think subsequently even took up Wheel of Time, if I'm not mistaken. Did he take Wheel of Time over from Jordan? I don't even read these fantasy books, and I'm trying to get my head wrapped around all the who's taken over for who that passed away. But so I liked Crafty Games for what they did with Spycraft, which originated out of AEG. And Alex was instrumental in creating that. One of the years I went to Gen Con, so my con experience, I'm all over the place today, bear with me. My con experience, my first gaming convention was in 1987, Gen Con in Milwaukee. Yes, I'm old. And I went there, I think I was still in high school, and I went there with an older friend of mine who had a driver's license. I think he might have graduated from high school at that point. Regardless, got a hotel room, got a badge, and then literally roamed around the convention. Didn't know how to sign up for games. We got this event booklet, but it was very, I don't know what to do, which is something I want to talk about here on stream sometime, is just the convention going. Because I was that guy at one time that didn't know what to do. You went to the con, we roamed around. Larry Elmore walked into our elevator. I was 16, I think, at the time. I was like, oh my God, it's Larry Elmore. Hi, Larry. He wasn't as short back then as he is now. Larry's a relatively short guy. Might be like 5'4", 5'6" tops. Anyways, he's like, "Hey, how y'all doing? You having a good con?" He's from Texas. I think he's originally from Texas, if I'm not mistaken. That's where he lives now, anyway. But that was it. I didn't go again. And then I think the next time I went to Gen Con, Gen Con specifically, I don't think I'd been to another gaming convention. I think I might have went to a Star Trek convention once in between, but I got out of role-playing games, came back, went to Gen Con, and then the first year I went to Gen Con, which was 2011, I think, 2011, maybe? It was the first year they went to Indianapolis. Had like 30,000 people compared to what they're now at as like over 60. Now that was pre-COVID number. But when I went there, I didn't know how to sign up for games, and so I would roam around. Bringing it back to Alex and Crafty Games. The first Gen Con I ever went to that I actually signed up for games, I signed up for Alex's Spycraft game because I'm like, oh, it's Spycraft. Oh, and it's the guy who wrote it's running it. Oh. And so, perusing Twitter last night, see Alex post, say, "Hey, if you're going to Gary Con," this is what he said, right? "Hey, not sure many of you folks are attending Gary Con next year, but if you're a fan of Spycraft by Crafty Games, I've got an event or 3 you might be interested in." And somebody's like, "What's that all about?" And he posted 3 events that are pending review, which he'll get approved, for Friday, Sunday, and Thursday. Thursday, Friday, Sunday. For, if I blow this picture up, Spycraft, you can barely see it. I can't blow it up. Spycraft 3rd edition preview. And so I told him, I said, "Hey man, the first," and I think his game was the first game, right? Like I had a couple other games. I think I played Champions that year, but his game, I think, was the first one I sat down and played and I don't know what I'm doing at a convention. And I thought, man, if I could get to Gary Con in March to play in one of those 3, that would be awesome. And it would be like completing the circle. I am very interested to see what they do with Spycraft, because when Spycraft original came out, it was at the D20. I mean, it wasn't even, I wouldn't even say it was maybe at the D20 boom. It was probably at the beginning of the boom and then rode the boom out. The silver covers, the ones that I'm talking about, is the Spycraft version. So it was D20. They had an action die. They had the same stat block. They had the different classes. And based on whatever class, if you were like a wheelman or a face, you had different bonuses to your base attack bonus, I think it was. But it was D20. And so it was very familiar. It was like 3.5 D&D, only it was Spycraft modern day. And it had different era books and different splat books. And I had all the splat books, and I got rid of all of them because I wasn't playing the game. They eventually came out with Spycraft 2.0. I played it a little bit. But those 2 games are very D20 derived. And when the first Spycraft came out, I mean, the previous espionage game that I thought was ever really popular before that was like Top Secret, maybe James Bond, which I didn't play and wasn't wholly familiar with. There were some espionage games on Modus Operandi, which is a website that Dave McAllister out of the UK ran, that was specifically to espionage games. I listened to Accidental Survivors because they were a modern day modern RPG, like current day. Not the RPG came out yesterday, but the setting, right? Modern RPGs. So they talked about like D20 Modern and Spycraft and some of those. So I got to know Rob and Fraser from Canada through that space. So I don't know. I guess the end story is I'm interested because they came from that D20 space, there's been a lot of espionage-ish books or role-playing games that have come out since then. White Lies is one of them. We did an actual play on the Gaming NBS channel. Harrigan ran that based off OSR and kind of a D6. You've got Cold Shadows. Insert all the other ones that are smaller form factor. I mean, Spycraft 2.0 is a beast of a book. It was probably close to 400 pages, 300 some pages. I mean, it was a beast. I think did I get rid of the core book? I don't know. Anyways, it was not without there were some wacky tables in there and cross references. Fine for what it is. That wasn't the role-playing game that I was looking for. They have the Spy game, which is distributed through Modifius, and I cannot remember the creator. The creator I think, had some experience with Modifius and maybe Fantasy Flight Games. I don't remember. But I have that. I haven't gotten to the table. That, just my gut feeling without having read the book, and I know that's as bad, but my gut tells me that it'd probably bring me back to the Spycraft days, because it's very much modeled after D&D 5e. Which is not bad. That would be another game. So Knights Black Agents, being Gumshoe, right? Jason Bourne versus vampires. So there's different iterations of the espionage genre in RPGs that have come out since the Spycraft days. And I'm wondering what Alex and the gang at Crafty Games is going to implement into their game. I mean, they've got Top Secret New World Order, which I have absolutely no interest in. No offense, Jason Elliott and the gang. Merle, Merle's a friend. Merle Rasmussen, who's the original Top Secret. He's the original administrator. I like Merle. I test played Top Secret New World Order. It was interesting, and if they kept what I think they did, which was, kind of different die types for different things. So I don't know if it was like a die stepping thing, right? So if you're trying to do something and you have a D6, you could, if it's harder, you step down to a D4, and it's easier, you step up to a D8. I'm not quite sure. I can't remember, but it just, I don't know, wasn't wholly. I'm not sure why I didn't want to get into the Top Secret New World Order. I think the reviews were mixed. They were all over the place. But it does interest me with Alex coming up with Spycraft 3rd edition. So cons, going back to conventions, I think I went there. I would like to do, because how I got onto this was 2022, what do you want to do in gaming that you didn't do in 2021? Which includes like getting certain games to the table. Are you going to try anything new? Do anything different? Experiment. Hey-o. And one of the things I think I want to do is try to get to an in-person convention. I don't know if that's ever going to happen. Who knows? For me. I'm also very content playing online right now. I don't even play locally face-to-face. So anyways, going to the chat. My local group is giving in-person play to go right now, but I'm still unsure if it will pan out. That's Kevin talking about Black Hack. He wants to get to the table. Jim says it probably won't run as much OSC as I did this year, and I hope my homebrew game continues for a while. Beyond that, I don't have plans or a backlog of games to go through. Brett Pazinski, good morning to you. Victor Wyatt, morning. Good to see you guys. Man, I really wish YouTube's chat wouldn't bounce around when I just scroll and it goes all the way to the beginning. Or to current. Oh, yeah. Roger says I'd play in that game. Roger's he wants to play in any of my games. I just got to become a really, really crappy game master, and Roger will be like, dude, I don't want to play with this guy ever again. Mothership could be. I played Mothership, so if I got that to the table, great. Kickstarter's going to come out. I don't know if there's going to be some additions to it, I think, but the core is probably going to be relatively same. Victor says, I'd love to run out and play Star Frontier sometime. Again, he says. Nice. I never played Star Frontiers. I owned it, actually, very briefly, because my wife saw it in a secondhand shop, and this was like recently. This wasn't back in the day. This was probably 2-3 years ago, maybe. Thrift store, probably longer. Immaculate. Shit's not even broken out. Got it for a steal, less than $20. Never going to get it to the table. I think I ended up giving it to Brett, honestly, along with some of my older stuff. Golf announcer voice. Yeah, man. Radelk, good to see you. Questing Beast. Milton did a cool one where he used closed captions commentary on his actual play. Not sure if that would become problematic with people with disabilities, but it was cool. Radelk, that was brought to my attention. I watched it, and I think it was an okay video, and it did get some really good feedback. I read the comments to kind of understand like what people thought of it. His audience seemed to appreciate it, and there was one specific that was like, I like this format because 1, it's actual play. 2, it allows me to get some insight from the game master and how they're running the game. And 3, I got to see the kind of game in action. I think Ben did a good job. I don't know if I would execute it like that, though. And one of the reasons is it was just a camera pointing at a table. You saw nobody at all. It was just audio, pretty much. So I'm like, why not just do a podcast and do that? So I would think that there would be some visual component of it. So the nice thing about people like Ben is they've got an audience. They've done a really good job in what they've done up to this point. They're trying something else. And you can watch them and see how they do it. And if it's executed the way you would want, you can model your thing next to it. Or if you're like, ooh, that's okay, but I just wouldn't do it that way, you could do it yourself and learn from their I wouldn't say mistakes, because it's just, I wouldn't say Ben's making a mistake. I don't know if I was keen to the format that he put it out there with. Sanderson confirmed he finished the Wheel of Time for Robert Jordan. Thank you very much, gents, Wayne, Kevin. Appreciate it. Jim says, I've only been to one con and signed up for a couple of games each day, but spent the rest of the time wandering around meeting people, including Larry Elmore. It was fun. Yeah. And that's fine. Like, it's fine. It's not a problem. I just thought I was doing it. There were a lot. Like, I went to Gen Con in 87, went to another one. There were like 2 or 3 gaming conventions I never did anything at. Even here in Madison, like GeekCon, which isn't really necessarily, there is a segment of gaming. OdysseyCon had a kind of the side room of gaming. Never really signed up for any events, but some of those you don't have to. You just show up, buy a badge, and then you can just sit in any seminar you want. Most of them are talking and panels, but I, for the longest time, I didn't do anything. Or it was like one of the Gen Cons, I was back in the day pretty heavy into D&D minis. So going to the D&D minis hall, and you didn't have to sign up for an event. You would just, hey, I'm going to buy some boosters. There's a tournament. Okay, cool. Do you want to be in the tournament? Sure. Okay, you're going to buy 3 boosters. Okay, give me 3 boosters. Build my army. Okay, it's going to start in like an hour. Go or time, and then how'd you do? Take your name down. And that was kind of it. So you didn't have to sign up for an event, peruse the catalog, things like that. And I thought, man, am I missing something? And how complex is it? It's not. You just have to know what you're doing, and it's not that hard. So sometimes you just need to point in the right direction. Joe Swick says, I went to the X-Files convention. That was interesting. Ooh, I bet. Holy cow. Cigarette smoking men everywhere. (2003) was the first convention in Indy. Yeah. I did go to the one in 2011. That's when I think when everything came together for me. Blake Ryan, Cold Childs, Le Carré, or Fleming. Le Carré, man. That would be my goal, Blake. He's kind of asking the action, I think, that the level of action. Cold War, man. Set it in like 1968 Berlin. I think what I would do is probably set up the agents. I don't know if they would all be from the same. There's 2 ways you can do it in Cold Shadows. going off on a tangent here. There's two things you can, a couple of different approaches you can take with Cold Shadows. The members, the agents, the player characters are a part of an agency. You have to select an agency because there's a couple aspects that the agency has that trickle down to the players. Like you can, I think there's 3 maybe, and you take 2 of the 3 and apply it to your character. In other words, like if it's agency to be known as well-funded, then your characters will have the aspect of well-funded, and that means you can get more stuff. If there's an agency that has the aspect of ruthless, then whenever they do something ruthless, they get an extra die, and it's an aspect of their character. So they have to be part of an agency. Now, you can choose from agencies that are already established. Mossad, MI6, CIA, KGB, whatever, right? And they have books, and they're in the book, and you can pick. Or you could build your own agency, and what qualities the agency has, which is kind of ties to the aspects. Part of me is like, ooh, that would be cool. Part of me is like, then it's an extra step and it's going to take longer and da-da-da. Why don't we just pick ones that exist? I'm leaning towards like using an MI6 CIA cooperative mission, 4 players tops, and that there's a defecting Russian general in 1968, and the group plays, they have a cover, and their task is to go into East Berlin under their cover and extract that Russian general. And with some of these games, specifically like Cold Shadows, you can't plan too much, because what happens in that game, and I actually did a how to RPG video that I didn't produce and put it out there because I think it was way too long. I got way into the weeds. I just didn't like it. I don't know. That's me. That's my hang up. But regardless, so I may still edit it and put it out there. But regardless, with Cold Shadows, it isn't whether you succeed or fail necessarily. Yes, that's part of the game. However, it's what you're trying to earn when you're doing a contest, when you're doing a check, or when you're trying to achieve something. What you are trying to get is what's called privilege in the game. And privilege allows you to narrate the scene. It doesn't say you succeed or fail. It's privilege. So, the players are going to want to succeed at what they're trying to do, obviously. That doesn't mean they have to. They can narrate it any way they want. So when you are attempting to do something and you succeed in the attempt, or you get your dice pool and everything, you roll and you're like, yay, I waged and I succeeded with 2 wagers, blah, blah, blah. You as the player get to narrate that outcome of what's facing you, the situation and the dilemma, the problem. If you as a game master in that game put too much into like a bucket, or put too much in a bucket, my stupid analogies. If you make the walls too concrete, the first time a player character wins privilege, they're going to freaking knock down the walls and it's going to go crazy off the rails. So you really got to just kind of set it up and say, hey, here's the deal. This is what you're going to do, as if you're probably, M, or the administrator that's conveying the mission. Here are the players, right? I say the players within the scenario, right? We're going to give you these identities, and then you're going to go into Berlin, and that's it. And we know where the Russian general goes. We have intelligence on what he does kind of on a daily basis, right? And then it would be go. And then after that, it's like, what do you want to do? And then from there, making those dice pool calls to determine which way the story goes from there. So that's what that's what I'm thinking in my brain, Blake. Rodelka did the same thing. I just went one day, sat down at demos, oogled the show floor. He's talking about cons, got a good lunch, painted a mini, had a great time, but felt super lost. For sure, man. It's like, And the thing is that when you go to a convention, like not even by yourself, say you go to a convention and you haven't signed up for events and you're kind of like, hey, I'm just going to go and I'm going to hang out. Brett does this all the time at GaryCon. He's run events, but GameholeCon, GaryCon, if he's not running his event, Streets of Avalon, I think even the beginning days of Gaming and BS before Streets of Avalon were even out, he wasn't really running a lot of games at GaryCon. He would just go and hang out. Like after my stuff, I could always go to the lounge and there's Brett reading a book. Or talking to somebody. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that by any means. But here's the thing, and specifically with the bigger conventions, I think, because the smaller ones, you can run into people that are coming and going from the bar or the lounge or whatever, where everybody kind of passes through, especially if it's all on one site. But if you go to a convention and you sign up for some games, many of the people I've come to know were in games of mine at these conventions. I would not know Alex Kammer from GameholeCon if I didn't play a game at GaryCon. Because I played with Josh. Josh is like his number 2 guy at GameholeCon, and he's like, yeah, we got this gaming convention we're going to do in Madison. And I had run a gaming community for like 2 years before that even came up, but I didn't even know who these guys existed. And so then Josh is like, hey, I think you should meet this Alex guy. He's kind of the leader of our group and, heading this up. And I think you guys would, should meet. Okay. Hey, got your email. So I bring that up because there's a lot of, Nick Abruzzo. I don't know. Some of you probably don't know Nick, but he's down in Illinois. I think he came up for GaryCon. I think I knew him from Google Plus days, but, I think, did I know he was in a game? Oh, I know what happened. I sat down at a DCC game that Michael Curtis was running at GaryCon, and the guy sitting next to me, he's like, hey, are you Sean? And I go, yeah. And he's like, hey, I'm Nick, Abruzzo, blah, blah, blah. I follow you on Google Plus, and maybe Gaming and BS was around. I don't remember. But now I had this kind of, a familiar person that I knew kind of at the table, and it made me feel more comfortable. And then after that, we'd go out and have a couple drinks after the game or see each other. And later on, when he was kind of looking for some professional help, I helped him out in that regard too. So we just kind of carried on from there. So gaming conventions, if you're playing, doesn't always happen that way, but if you're playing in events, could lead to some other things. And it's a personal preference, but I find for me it beneficial. But I'm selective. Spycraft 2 was too much, too complex. Yeah, Wayne, for sure. Victor says there's going to be a top secret live play on December 22nd. Their newsletter sent out an email about this morning. Should probably get on that list. Victor, I'm interested on who would be running it. And I imagine it's on Twitch. Where? Because I'm not on their email. If you could forward it to me or DM it to me on Discord, like if they have the web version of that email, that would be cool. Because I'd be interested in checking that out. I've sat in on Merle's top secret game. That's another thing that probably was like, Like I said, I know Merle, he's very nice. And it's one of those things where it's like every time you open the book, you would see his name. You're like, oh, I got to get this guy. I want to get in his game. He's the guy, man. He wrote Top Secret. Awesome. Oh, so great fond memories as a kid. Oh, met Merle, had him sign my copy of Top Secret. Got to sign up for it. Oh, he's running Top Secret. Oh, I got to get in that game. Got into his game at GameholeCon. And it was meh. It was okay. It wasn't terrible. And I, frankly, I didn't know what to expect. I mean, why should I? And he's not one of the guys that I talk about that are like of the old TSR days that was the driving force behind a particular role-playing game that's a bad GM, because Merle's not. There are others that are, in my opinion. Like, what? So I'd like to see that live play. I don't know if Merle's running it or Jason or somebody else. I know James Carpio is heavily involved with those guys. James is one of the nicest guys out there. Just super, and he's a homeboy. Like, he's from Connecticut. So, once I go out there, visit family, I'll have to look him up. It's so weird for me regarding Milton actual play. I like watching them draw maps and move minis way more than talking heads. Might be why I like watching Hobbs, because he has a visual more than talking heads. And that's cool, Radelk. It's like, it's easier just to not have to watch if there isn't anything else that comes out, unless you need to look at it visually. Like, okay, here, let me draw this map. Oh, I better look and see what this map's all about. And then up until that point, you don't even need any visual. It's just audio. Let's face it. How much visuals are in Theater of the Mind games? Throw a map down for reference. Lots of us never even put minis down on it. So I get it. Thanks, Victor, for linking it. Appreciate it. 1968 Berlin would rock. Yeah. Man, I've been to Europe, so I want to get into that brain, right? And I was there when the wall fell, and I've seen the wall. I've chipped pieces out of it. That thing was a beast. And it was down in Potsdamer Platz. So, that's a place where, hey, an East German climbed the wall and tried to run away, they potentially could get shot. Just an interesting place in time, especially for Cold War. People going back and forth through the checkpoints. It's just like to think that there was a city that was kind of, operated by 3 different factions, right? 4 different four at the beginning, like when they divvied up Berlin. And then, that's when the Soviet Union was like, all right, we're going to wall it off because people are fleeing our side. It's crazy. I went through checkpoint Alpha Bravo Charlie when they were still in place. Charlie was taken out, actually. Alpha and Bravo I had to go through. And those are the Hauptstadt Autobahn, right? And I had to get Russian flag orders. I had to get flag orders. So you're like, what's flag orders, Sean? So when I was over in Europe and stationed in Germany, you could travel pretty much anywhere. So as a military member, I didn't need a passport. My passport was my military ID. And when Europe went to a majority of open borders, which was a big thing, right? So when you preach, if anybody from Europe here is like, duh, Sean. But some people in America don't know this. But there was a time when they had closed borders. So every time you want to go to a country in Europe, which isn't really hard, they're all very close together. It was like going to, when I say going, it's like a traditional border crossing where you would have to go through customs and blah, 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 blah. Now, I had never been there when it was like that necessarily. Where it's a little bit, well, that's not true, because Switzerland had a little bit of that, right? We had to stop, pay to get in the country, go kind of through the customs piece, drive through the toll booth, kind of like what the Mexico-U.S. border is now. But in Europe now, with a lot of the open borders, it's like, for many of us in the U.S., it's like driving Illinois. Oh, they got tolls. Okay. And then you drive on their, there is a border crossing probably, but it's not as closed as it once was. Why am I getting into this? I don't know. But, so at the time I went to East Germany, they were in the midst of decommissioning a lot of that stuff. But in order to get there, your military ID was not going to be the only thing to get you into that country. you had to get flag orders. So I had to fill out some forms, get some officers to approve it. Okay, sounds good. And the reason they're called flag orders is they're literally like a single sheet of paper, and at the top it has all the flags of the ally countries, right? And the orders, because they're kind of like what we call orders, are all written in the ally language, right? So there's, it's French, English, German. That was it. French, English, and German, and Russian, actually, because you had to hand it to the Russians and they could read it. And so you had, and it would be like your name, date of birth, kind of mimicking your ID. And then that with your ID was kind of your passport to get into East Germany. And we drove up there with a couple buddies of mine, and we had to confront Russian soldiers. Well, they were kind of our enemy, right? And I grew up during the Cold War, man. I'm a Gen Xer, The day after was like the thing that scared the hell out of us on TV. Going through basic training in the military. Like, when we were in Germany, when you're doing operation security and you talked on the phones, when they talk about OPSEC, you wouldn't divulge certain confidential components of your unit because Boris was listening, and Boris was, as a matter of fact, some of the public service announcements, because when you have AFN, Armed Forces Network, which is kind of the English TV station for all the armed forces throughout Europe, there weren't commercials. It wasn't commercial TV. It was Armed Forces Network. So it's kind of like public. It's like PBS, but with all the mainstream television shows. So there wasn't like, hey, here's Charmin toilet paper ads. It was public service announcements, OPSEC and, things that military members it would be pertinent to military members. And there was always the ad that was like, ring, 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 blah, 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 blah. And they were mimicking a telephone conversation. It was like, at the end, they would look at the camera and go, hi, Boris. And then, hey, practice Operation Security. Super cheesy stuff, but it was just hilarious and funny. And now looking back, it's like, the Warsaw Pact, right? Anyways, so then after that, we'd go to the Russians. We're like, got to salute the enemy, to get in this country and give them our flag orders and don't mess around. We don't want any trouble. And then ended up going into through East Germany into Berlin. And then, checkpoint Bravo was to get into Berlin. And then once you were in Berlin, you were fine. But they still had Russian checkpoints within Berlin. Charlie was the one that you could traverse. That had been yanked out, within 3 to 6 months when we went up there. The reason I went was to go see Roger Waters at the Wall. So if you don't know who Roger Waters is, you can leave right now. No, I'm just kidding. He's the bass player of Pink Floyd. And he put on a huge production at the Wall. Roger Waters does the Wall at the Wall. It was a crazy experience. Victor says, I just can't hang out at a con. It could be part of my chin, but I have to play or run games too. Larry says, went to Origins this year for one day to just wander and have a look. Masked and really enjoyed the day. Usually do 3 days there, but this was nice. Yeah, can totally see that. Jim says, I don't think I'd like big cons. Gary Con was 1,200 people, so you run into the same people over and over and make connections. Bigger than that, and I think I'd just be overwhelmed. And I agree. Brett and I stopped going to Gen Con. Brett was like, Gen Con with his home group was like the thing. Like Alex Kammer and his buddies go every year because they rent a suite and they play a lot of their games in their own suite. Alex also does a lot of networking too as he's there being, the head of Gamehole Con. So I understand that advantage of going to Gen Con, and a lot of industry people kind of mingle there. They do the reunion, right? They catch up. That's their catch up time with the people that they know that they probably worked with, crossing paths within the RPG hobby because it's not that big. They probably worked with each other one way, shape, or form. It's kind of similar to the small con at GaryCon. Like GaryCon, Game Whole Con. Maybe I'd like to get to the Con of the North. Maybe, North Texas RPG, who knows? But those two would be go-tos for me. Pretty standard moving forward, but with COVID, it's been squashed. Blake says, if I recall, Vienna in Austria had moving patrols from France, UK, US, USSR. Roving patrols. Interesting. Yeah. Jim, let's see. Wayne went to East Berlin by train in 73 as a kid with my family. Dad was stationed in Kaiserslautern. I've spent time in K-Town. Wayne, I was stationed not far from Kaiserslautern. The second time I was in Europe, so very familiar where that is, actually. Drank a few drinks in the town of Kaiserslautern back before I got out. Yeah, AFRTS, you bet. Found my cold shadows, Victor says. Talked to Wayne Humfleet about Berlin sometime. He was there when that wall came down. So yeah, Wayne and I were there about the same time. As a matter of fact, I don't remember when Wayne left theater. I think he might have left. I think he might have got called up for Desert Storm. I think he did. And I think I arrived maybe later in Germany than Wayne did, but I think he left sooner than I did, which would make sense. Like if he was only there for a certain amount of time. I don't remember where he was stationed either. I know he had probably been there. I don't think he was stationed in Berlin. But I think he had been to Checkpoint Charlie where I wasn't. I hadn't had the opportunity. He's older. He's older than me, so what are you going to do? Yeah. I ended up I was just going over this with somebody recently. I think it was Eileen Barnes, actually, because she was talking about one of our moderators. She's a military spouse, and one of her friends is like, her husband's getting orders. Her friend's husband's getting orders. And so her friend has to leave. And she's like, sucks because I really liked it, like this person. And they said, yeah, it's really rough military life because you're at the whims of the government wherever they want to put you in. I brought that up because when I was in Germany the first time, I was a 2-year enlistment, which is unheard of. Like when I got there and people were like, hey, Kelly, and I'm like, yeah, man, when I got to Germany, a typical tour of Germany in Germany for the Army is 2 years in length, duration. If you bring a spouse over, a dependent, then you have to extend that 2 years to 3 years, right? So if you're there with family, you got to have a 3-year stint in Germany alone, okay? When I got there, because I was a 2-year enlistment in the Army, total, I went through basic, went through my advanced training, ended up in Germany. I was actually in Germany shorter than 2 years because my enlistment was going to be done. So a lot of people were like, let me get this straight. You are shorter when you're from the time, like from here to the point you leave the military, you're called, like you're short timer, right? Like 6 months, you're a short timer. You can start counting down the days. You could, like you say, I'm short. Then as you get closer and closer to your discharge date, you say, I'm so short I could fall off a dime, right? And you would hold up your, I'm short. Short timer, right? Because the Desert Storm broke out and they were starting to cut back on military troops in Europe, they actually gave us deactivation orders where that means like, hey, pack up your stuff, pack up all the equipment, get it all ready to get it shipped to the United States, and then we're going to close down, kind of like close your base down. And they were doing that to our brigade, and the unit I was in was the last one on the list. So they're like, this one, and then these guys. The top 3, 4 when the war broke out in the desert, they took those because they'd already started, right? Pack up your stuff. Okay, sounds good. We're going to go home. We're going to go to the United States. Then the war broke out and they're like, hold on a second. You already packed up. We need some people out in the desert. So instead of putting them on those ships, we're going to put them on these ships and then we're going to send them to the desert. Take this one, then this one, and then this one. And oh, by the way, we should probably keep some back to make sure everything's operating properly and guarding the community. That was my unit. So we didn't go as a unit. There were people that picked out of it. I know this is RPG talk, but whatever. And more life talking than anything. So they sent, all the units there, and I hung out and guarded the community with a unloaded weapon. Like I didn't even have, we would joke like guarding the housing community. Like, well, what if somebody like barreled down into here? What are we going to do? Throw our gun at them, And then what happened was when Desert Storm was done, then what do you do? So then they said, okay, finish packing up all your stuff, because we had to guard the community and do all this stuff and train as things were happening. When it was all done, we had all our stuff packed up, and then they started closing down buildings. So they would shift, this building's down to a certain number, move those people to the next one, close that building. Move these people to the next one, close this building. And it was all based on when people were leaving. And so since the unit was closing up, I became the kind of company clerk, the Radar O'Reilly of the group, and I was responsible for typing up all the orders to get all the people reassigned to different places, whether they were getting out of the army or they were going somewhere else. And so I saw like everybody leave. Because I was the last, because I was going home after I was done. I wasn't going anywhere else, and they were just going to let me out when this was all finished. So I was literally close to being the last guy to shut the lights off in the buildings and the units. And I say this because things over there have changed so much. Like all our base belong to you, us. It's all now German owned. And so when I go on to like, Augsburg, Germany's Facebook page, or I go on to Google Maps and I look at it and I'm like seeing how things have changed and some of those details. It's kind of it's interesting. And we'd always talk about the bars we would go to and blah, 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 blah. I don't even know how I got on the subject. Anyways, Europe. It was just a great experience overall. Fortunate experience too, because it could have been very unfortunate. Morning people, Harrigan. Only been to smaller cons, kind of want to attend a big con once, but I think the smaller ones are more for me personally. There's nothing, I think that's a pretty common thing. Like people are like, I like the quaint, more intimate ones, but Gen Con is an experience. Origins I'd like to get to, because they're different, right? A lot of what I've heard is Origins is you go there to play. Gen Con, you can go there to play. There's also a lot of mingling and things of that nature. And frankly, the bigger cons, Queen City Conquest out in Buffalo that's Phil and Chris's and Bob's kind of home convention from Misdirected Mark. Brett went out there one year. I was not able to. So to go and see those guys, you'd either go to Queen City Conquest, or Chris came here to Gamehole Con, or you go to Gen Con and kind of meet in the middle. And so that's probably one of the biggest reasons I would want to go to a big convention, is to see some of you and say, hey, I'm going to go to Origins. Let's everybody meet at Origins and we'll go do something and hang out. Where the smaller cons, it's more, people are more selective. Like, well, I don't know if I'm going to go to Gary Con or Gamehole Con. They're pretty small. And if I wanted to go to a small convention, I would just go to one in my backyard, and totally makes sense. They don't have to pay for air travel and, take extra 2 days for traveling and things of that nature. So totally get it. But Gen Con is an experience for sure. Riddell, like some of the big crazy stuff they can do with organized games at the bigger cons. Pathfinder had Siege game where they had scoreboard up on the wall and every table was defending city together. Now, D&D had a guy flying big dragon miniature from table to table, slaughtering us randomly for the finale of Con Game. Chris Perkins was roaming around watching it. Oh boy. Yeah. Ooh, one of the dogs is awake. Hold on a second. I'll be right back. I'm going to do a couple things. Should only take a couple minutes. Sorry about that. Anticipated just turning on the heat. But little dog. Oh man, okay. So let's talk about conventions, right? Got one coming up in January. BSRCon. GamingandBS.com/BSRCon. It's shaping up pretty well. First online convention I've ever been involved with. 30, I think we're up to like 38 events. Granted, 1 or 2 of those are recurring, like the paint room, but people are signing up every day. The event submission closes January. Yeah, booger. You think I'd know this by now. I'm hoping many of you can partake. But if you go to GamingBS.com/BSRCon, event submission is closing the 3rd, and then we're going to open event registration open on the 10th. So give it a week for people to kind of view some of the games that are being offered. And then on the 10th, we'll open it up, I think around noon hour Central Time is what I have down. And then you can sign up for events. So if you haven't registered a game that you want to run, don't forget, put it in there. If you're on the fence, let me put some nerves at ease. The Gaming and BS community, most of the people I've interacted with are folks that would want the game master to do well and succeed and not be nervous, and they're not going to come in there and challenge you. That's not what they would. And most of them that are probably attending have game mastered at least once in their life, so they have an understanding of the nuances that goes into it. So if you haven't game mastered before, or you're kind of nervous, this would be a good gaming convention, in my opinion, to be able to do that. So don't be afraid. Nobody, especially virtually, nobody will punch you in the face. Promise. Even if it was in person, nobody's going to punch you in the face. $5 badge gets you the whole weekend, and all the money is not going to be for Sean to retire on. We're going to donate it to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. So if you're interested. So gaming conventions, I think I had somebody say, hey, why don't you do a show on game cons? And it's a little unique now, but, who knows? As things may or may not open up, there's some that are having in person, some are going to have in person regardless of the situation. You got to be comfortable with you and the situation itself and how you want to handle it. It's a personal choice, regardless of who says what. Okay. Nobody knows your situation better than yourself and the ones around you, personal, significant others, things of that nature. Having said that, if you can get to a gaming convention, great. If you are going to a big one, expect a lot of people. What are the differences between the big conventions and the smaller ones? Other than the physical venue and the amount of people, maybe some of the offerings might be a little different, right? So some of the bigger conventions, they may have a live critical role play show. They may have True Dungeon, where they don't at North Texas or what have you. They may have more guests of honor, gaming industry, artists, comics, movies. One year at Gen Con I went, they had Chekhov, right? The guy who played Chekhov from Walter Koenig from Star Trek was a guest. David Carradine was a guest. Tanya Roberts, at Gen Con. Go to Gamehole Con, and it's going to be many of industry people, like people from Wizards of the Coast, maybe some streaming, right? Probably not a huge amount of, Joe Manganiello has been to GaryCon, but he wasn't on the list of celebrity guests. He was there as a participant, actually. So that's probably a big difference. the amount of games that are being offered, the different types of games sometimes play a role, right? If you go to Metatopia, the games that you find there are probably going to be a little bit different than the ones that you find at the Gary Con or North Texas RPG Con. Don't discount the smaller ones. As far as organization goes, there may be no difference between Gen Con or a smaller convention. You know, just ask anybody who tries to get housing at Gen Con. What's up, Lucas? Good to see you. Gabe, good to see you. But if I can encourage you, very, very simple. Like many of us here that have gone to conventions, this is like, yes, Sean, I know this stuff. But nonetheless, if this comes across to somebody else that hasn't been to one, is on the fence, doesn't know what to expect, or they've been to a convention, they're like, yeah, I've kind of gone and wandered and kind of hung out, but I don't know how to do much else. Got to get a badge. That's a no-brainer. Get it off the website. If you got to fly, make accommodations. Some will have hotel blocks. You need a discounted rate. That's usually through their website. They'll probably explain how to use that. If it's a promo code, whatever. Sometimes they have it built right into their website. But more importantly, register for events. Make sure you're allowing some time to do things you're not planning. Even if you're like planning like your itinerary, leave purposely open spots that have nothing going on. Don't know what I'm doing between 1 and 3 on Saturday. Period. End of discussion. It's just open. Whatever comes along. Because something could and will, probably. You run into somebody, hey, what are you doing at between 1 and 3? Well, I got a game from 1 to 2, but at 3 or 2:30, I'm free. Cool. Let's grab, coffee, drink, beer, whatever. Something to eat. Plus, you got to eat. You don't know when you're going to eat. You can put that into your schedule. Don't overextend yourself too much. Some will be like, I got a game back to back starting at 8 o'clock all the way to 8 p.m., man. And then, at the end of that 8 p.m. game, you are starving your ass off. You haven't had anything to drink, probably on the verge of dehydration. So make sure, you leave some openings. But don't be afraid. How you register an event, it's going to have an event catalog. Peruse it. Encourage folks to look for games they haven't played before. Because if you can always play D&D at home, try something new. This is the place that you can go and play something new and try. Because if it doesn't work, no big deal. You haven't sold your game group a bunch of books that they're never going to use. You haven't committed a bunch of time to organizing something that's never going to get played again after the first session because you didn't really care for it. Try a different game. Keep in mind when you try a different game at a convention, if it doesn't go smoothly or swimmingly, don't write the game off. Could be, Augie. Could be the game master. Could be the group you were playing with. So go there with an open mind. But in the end, if it's not a game you want to play in the future, hey, okay. You tried it. Hey, you tried that food. It's not your jam. That's cool. At least you could say you tried it. Social, we're all the same. Not all the same. We all have a passion for the hobby. That's the commonality, right? It may not be that game. It may not be, that mechanic. It may not be for that publisher. But we all have the commonality that we love role-playing games of some sort. That's the bond that we have with everybody at a convention. So that's the thing, right? Talk to other people. Don't be afraid to mingle. Some of us are shy. Some of us are bashful. Sometimes we're introverts. The person sitting right next to you may be similar in their personality as far as like they're not an extrovert. So you're not alone is what I'm trying to say. If you go with a group, great. I know some people play games with their groups. They go there and they want to play with their home group because they feel comfortable and that's their deal. That's fine. Don't be afraid to break out from that. Play games with other folks. Rendezvous with your roommates later. Maybe you have a common game that you all play in. Jimmy and Doc and those guys always used to play the D&D Open. Like, yeah, they'd play this, they'd play that, run their own games. But the D&D Open, they always had to leave open and get together and play in that. So, however you want to do it. 3-2-1 rule, right? What is it? 3 hours of sleep, 2 meals a day, 1 shower a day. Yes, that's a real thing. People get caught up. They forget to do all that stuff, right? For some of us that are getting older, I think the 3 hours needs to be longer. And that's like, there isn't a lot to it. Like, what do you have to bring? Like, do you have to, like, another thing people don't understand is like, okay, I signed up for a game. Do I have to bring all the books? What do I need to bring? I don't want to show up to a table and like feel out of place because I forgot something I shouldn't have. And then, people look at me like, duh, how dumb, you should have known. Take a backpack. In your bag, have a bottle of water, dice, ton of dice bag, something to write with. Bring more than one thing to write with because the one thing that you're going to bring isn't going to write or run out of lead or ink. So bring more than one. If you're going to play in a particular game with a particular set of rules, bring the rule book if you can. But if you're playing like 3 or 4 games and it's got a few different rule books, you're going to be lugging books around with you for a while. So depending on where you're located, hotel-wise, that's a judgment call. But don't weigh yourself down with a ton of books if you can help it. If you got an iPad and you can put PDFs on it, I would totally go that route if you can. Some games you won't need a rule book for. The GM will handle all that stuff. Not a problem. They'll have pre-gens typically if you want to bring character sheets. But most GMs, if they're going to have you character gen at the table, should bring blank character sheets. Otherwise, bring a pad of paper. That's the best character sheet out there. It'll accommodate anything. Legal pad. So legal pad, dice, pencil should take care of a lot of it. That's kind of it. And then have a great time. Don't think things too seriously. Read the table, kind of gel. You're going to have all kinds of experiences. You're going to have one player at the table that's just going to annoy the hell out of everybody. You're going to have one that's doing a really good job. You're going to have a good game master and a bad game master. It's just the inevitable parts of a convention and playing with different people. But take it in as an experience. And you never know, you might meet somebody new. And might even meet somebody that's from your neighborhood that you didn't even know. And then a home group begins. Who knows? You might meet people that you'll keep in contact through social media for years and years. That's it. Like, be on time to the event. Be a good citizen, right? Don't ruin other people's experiences. If you like to partake, in some states, it's legal to smoke the marijuana. Alcohol is legal in all of them if you're a certain age. Just be mindful of too much, right? You may not know you've had too much, but everybody at the table may know you have had too much. So if you want to do it after hours, off the table, great. It's your prerogative. Just keep in mind that there are other people trying to experience a positive convention. So you show up to a table hammered. It's probably not cool for others. You might think it's great. Other people may not. So just be courteous and respectful to other people that are trying to have a good experience. That's in-person conventions. Online can be an interesting beast. Be on time. Find out where it's at. I'm hoping that goes smoothly for us. Like, I don't know where anything is, hopefully when event reg takes place, all the things are assigned to a Discord channel. In the tabletop events platform we're using, GMs should be able to message the group. I know at least the group can message the GM. So if there's an alternative video audio platform that the GM wants to use that's not Discord, they can do that, but they're going to have to let their group know where. What I would suggest is, mustering if you can at the Discord channel and then moving it from there if you want. Requires a Discord account. So you have to make accommodations virtually if you're going to go to an online con. There's just going to be things that you're going to need depending on the game you sign up for. So some of those things should be listed when you go to an event. If it says, hey, Zoom, this event uses Zoom and you don't like Zoom or you don't want to create a Zoom account, well, then don't sign up for that event. It's kind of the only option. Because that's what the game masters decided to do. But it's just similar. Peruse the events, do a sign up, show up on time, don't show up wasted. Share the table. Things that you might find acceptable at your home table may not always be acceptable at a gaming conventions table, whether it's virtual or in person. Just keep that in mind. Swearing might be something like, it might be a thing, right? Don't show up and cuss like a longshoreman. Read the table, right? I think overall, many of us can talk without dropping 50 F-bombs in an hour. Just be mindful. That's all. Enjoy yourself. Partake. Don't sit too much in the shadows. Share the spotlight. All kind of, I say these things as to some of us, we're like, yeah, sure, of course, Sean, right? Yeah, that makes sense. But not all of this hits people in the head until somebody tells them. Like, oh, for the last 5 years of my life, I treat people like dog shit. Sean says I shouldn't be condescending because people don't like me. Oh, nobody in all my 5 years has ever told me that before. Now I know. Hey, Ty. Ty says, phone, headphones. Riddell says, if you like me and need a break from the crowd noise. Ty says, laptop with PDF, index cards, pins, highlight pens, snacks, water. Yeah, good stuff. Have your own little bag full of goodies that you want to carry around with you. Spare socks, Blake says. That's hardcore there. Make sure the dogs, call them the dogs, feet are taken care of. Can you use Battlestar Galactica swear words? I don't know. I guess. Judgment call. Yeah. Gaming convention. I think we've covered that. If you have any questions, let me know. Put it down below. More than happy to tackle those. How do you register for, if you want to run a game? Submit an event. Usually they come in slots. Those slots are usually a duration. So maybe it's an hour. And there's a minimum. Most RPGs are 4 hours, but you can still run a 2-hour RPG. That's something that's more in line with what you want to do. But keep in mind, players may not know anything other than what you put in the description. If it's going to be mature content, put it in the description, right? If it's going to be, bring your own character, put it in the description. If it's going to be pre-gens, put it in the description. Make the player understand what they're getting into, what they need and what they don't need. So when they show up, no problem. Hey, blah, blah, blah. Here's what the game's going to be about. This is the system that's going to be used. Most of the times you submit an event, it's going to ask you what system you're going to be running anyway. Again, people filter by system. Oh, I don't want to play Savage Worlds. I want to play this. So most of the times you're going to have a system, the amount of players, make sure it's manageable. Sean, what if somebody says, hey, do you have an extra slot and my game's full? Tell them, no, you don't. Or, yes, I do. I'm willing to accommodate, but only one person, or if somebody doesn't show up, I'm more than willing to slide them in. There are cons that have rules to that. For example, at Gamehole Con, you pay for an event. The player does. So if I want to play in your event, I have to pay $4. If you substitute somebody because there's money involved, then how does that work? So make sure whatever that is per the con, they could say, well, then that person has to go to the con desk, purchase a ticket, then they can play. Keep in mind. Okay. Keep some time open for the exhibit hall because you want to go in there. The last day of the con is usually the deals. Here's the thing with the exhibit hall. If you want to go and get the stuff that's going to run out quick, because it's hey, we're going to release this game, at Gen Con Thursday when the exhibit hall opens and it's a hot item ticket, probably going to want to try to get there as soon as possible to grab your own copy before they run out. Because once they run out at the con, it's pretty much done. They don't usually get another shipment within a day or two at the convention. What they have shipped there is usually it. However, if there's nothing that's hot item, then I'd recommend going there on the last day of the con because they'll try to move a lot of their inventory and sometimes you get some deals. So they'll usually do buy two, get one free, buy one, get the second one half price, whatever it is, because they don't want to take that stuff and ship it back. Hot tip. Keep in mind, last day of the con, the exhibit hall is probably going to be very full as well because people know that. So they go there at the last day and they've been probably putting it off. So there's that's a con insider snippet, so you know. And if you've been to a convention and you kind of roamed around and this and that, you may already know that. Or maybe you don't because you just go into the exhibit hall whenever you want because you're just roaming around. So something to be aware of. Restaurants are going to be hit and miss. Some don't have restaurants. Gamehole Con's got food trucks, food carts. Somebody, you're not sure what to get. You always ask, hey, it's one of the best ones out there. Oh, that's one good roast beef here if you like beef. Yeah. Should we move on to something else? You don't need that much stuff, Redelk says. That is really true. I carried around a military pamphlet bag, right? It's OD green canvas. It's a little bit bigger than 8.5 by 11. It's probably 13 by, I don't know, 13 by 12. It'll hold a book in there. Maybe a couple. Notebook. It's got a bunch of slots for pencils, bag of dice. It's got a carabiner. I could put a water bottle onto it, my keys, and does just fine. It's not, if I were to put anything more than 5 pounds in that thing, it's going to be way obnoxious and way full. So, you're right. You don't need a lot when you're walking around. But you also, if you're going to buy stuff, then maybe the backpack and not put a lot in the backpack. And then you go to the exhibit hall and then you load it up. But load it up at the end of the day, not at the beginning. Oh, anyways. Todd Sharp. Hey, Todd. Good to see you. He says, yeah, my first con was an 80-pound rucksack. Now a bag of dice, pencils, and scratch pad. Yeah, we can overdo it. And the first time, some of the stuff I tell you, you'd be like, yeah, whatever. But I want to make sure. So you get a big backpack, you put a bunch of stuff in it, bring all your game stuff in it. Then you go to the exhibit hall, pack more stuff in it. By the time you're done with the day, you've been hauling around a 40-pound backpack full of hardbound books. And then you go, oh, Yeah, I should probably listen to that guy. Should you post the pre-gens so they can see ahead of the game? If you can, Ty, some platforms won't allow you. If you could maybe communicate to the group, like especially online cons, that's probably not a bad idea. Put them in a Google Drive, iCloud, Dropbox, and then message the group that signed up for your game and said, hey, here's the pre-gens. Pick them before you can. Or the only problem with picking them before you can, that's hard because the group may not be coming together, right? You may just blast it out. They can't discuss things until you actually start playing. But that's a good point. I can at least peruse the pre-gens and go, oh, I want to play that person or that person. And then when you do show up, everybody's like, the Game Master says, everybody looked at the pre-gens. People could say yes. Does anybody have a preference? As a Game Master tip, have a way of determining if two people have the same preference, how are you going to break that? Rolling dice. Gamers love to roll dice. That's probably fair. Whoever rolls the highest on a D20, rock, paper, scissors, the Game Master could say, hey, person with the least amount of experience gets the pick. Have you ever played this game? No. You have? Yes. They get the choice. Right? Make up your own rule, right? You're a game master. Make it happen. You can do it. You got the authority. It's a good point, Ty. Thanks for bringing it up. How often, good questions. How often do you introduce reoccurring NPCs in your games? How do you use them? At Hofzinser's Corner. Craig. Hofzinser's Corner. Craig Shipman icon. That is you, Craig. I know it is. How often do you introduce reoccurring NPCs in your game? How do you use them? So this is more of a different topic. Let me mark that down. It's a good topic. We can move into that too. Let me just finish up quick. Most of the game I play aren't pre-gens, but I wouldn't worry about sharing them early. Never done a con yet, Ty says. Okay, I've been to comic book con. That's cool. Don't be afraid, Ty. Nobody's going to punch you in the face. If you are going to a con with a large exhibit hall, plan a loop drop-off point for sure. Harrigan says that Ty, ping me on the GBS Discord. I can walk you through play-by-post play. You don't know me? I don't know you? Hofzinser's Corner? It's just a weird name. Craig, you dirty bugger. Somebody's taken Craig's icon, avatar. Is that what it is? Craig's going to be winning that RPG podcast of the year. If you didn't vote over at the EN World, they got some. Yeah, it's a popularity contest, and he needs all the popularity he can get. Craig Shipman, Third Floor Wars, Best RPG Commentary Podcast. Voting ended yesterday. So if you didn't get it in on the next one. Hey, Gabe. Now I'm going to get my pre-gens made and post ahead of time. Me too. I never think of that because I'm just going to do it at an online or an in-person kind of put them on the table, have a look. People go, okay, I like this. Great. Online con, share them if you can ahead of time. Say, hey, everybody take a look at them. So now I got to do that. I'm going to be running at BS, or kind of going to be running Forget About It. And it'd be nice so people can I like this guy and this guy because they have a little background too, story. So doesn't hurt. All right. A sad tiny pod and Sean is king. Get out of here. Now I know it's Shipman. Craig Shipman for president. Starts out with an RPG podcast, starts running the world. I'm going to be his campaign manager. Third Floor Wars. You like a good interview show on RPGs. Craig's the de facto standard. He's the guy to beat. Yeah, amen. Craig interviews are the best RPG interview in the biz. No BS. Yeah, no BS. He's like, Wayne's like, no BS. Don't listen to Gaming and BS. Listen to Craig. Third Floor Wars. There you go. Couldn't agree with Wayne more. Here we go. How often do you introduce reoccurring NPCs in your games? How do you use them? That's a tricky one because you got to make sure if you want to reuse them that you don't put them in the situation where you're unable to reuse them. That's my story and I'm sticking to it. My answer to that is it depends. Because it's going to be based on the situation. It's hard to say, hey, I want to get this reoccurring NPC if in place and put them in front of the players every once in a while, but the situation never presents itself. And if you try to ham-fist it, the players are going to know. It's going to be awkward. Oh, okay, this guy just shows up. Didn't know. Like we're halfway around the world and he just happens to be there. You can. Sure, nothing wrong with it. It's fantasy. TV, movies, books, they do it all the time. It's been a little while since I've done a reoccurring NPC. And I'm trying to think if I could do that in Forbidden Lands currently. I could, maybe. Oh, and yes, I have. So in the Forbidden Lands game, for an example, so a situation, maybe I'll just give context around it. Guys meet at an outpost, the party, bar, tavern, wherever they are. If where they are can facilitate other NPCs, bar, tavern, square, town square, blah, 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 wherever there's people. Anywhere there is other people than the PCs, there are NPCs. Period. Like, that's kind of the deal, right? Whether you as the game master wants to portray all of them or just a couple of them is up to you. If you're in a town square, people are coming and going. You know, you're at the bazaar, right? Whatever that is. In my instance, at the outpost, I had a group of wanderers, but somebody might call them bandits. It doesn't matter, right? A group comes into the outpost to find solace. And in so doing, they sit at a table and start, shooting the shit between each other. The party injects themselves into it or vice versa, right? The NPCs either say, hey, you look familiar, or hey, you, what's your story? Whatever. Somehow they come together. One of the party members wanted some information from the NPCs because they knew that they were going somewhere, but they didn't want to divulge. It was kind of on the down low, like, hey, man, we got this treasure. It's like, hey, we got a treasure we're going after, but we don't want anybody to know. So the player characters kind of get a little wind of that. And so Harrigan's character ends up charming one of the NPCs. Gets the info. Next day, they end up, hey, let's go and check this place out. NPCs leave. I have one of the NPCs, the NPC that he charmed. He couldn't get her out of his head. Right? The charm's worn off, no big deal. But the group of bandits, the NPCs, they go off on their merry way. The party goes off on their merry way. Well, as the party goes off on their merry way, this individual named by the name of Troy has been smitten magically and just himself smitten with Harrigan's female character, and says, hey, I've been thinking about this woman all the time. I'm going to go and I'm going to go express my feelings for this person. Make sure she's okay and blah. And that's what he did. So, it wasn't like they traveled hundreds and hundreds of miles. They did maybe a couple hexes, and he found her. And he's experienced, maybe he could track or whatever, blah, blah, blah. Eventually, he's, hey, I've been tracking you for 3 days and I finally caught up to you. And I wanted to say that I'm madly in love with you. I haven't been able to get you out of my head. Love at first sight, blah, 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 blah. Love struck person. Reoccurring NPC. Now he plays a role with whatever the player characters are doing, good or bad. So the group, the NPCs, that the group, the bandits, eventually Troy leaves the party. The party is going to go back to that outpost. Are there other people that the party runs into? Maybe somebody from their background. Maybe it's the same bandit party that Troy was a part of. They come back from their little excursion and run into the NPCs. So it all depends on when those triggers come about. So reoccurring NPCs are great, but when do they get implemented into the overall adventure and the scenario? And it all depends on the game you're playing, the genre you're playing. I mean, if you're James Bond, how are you doing that? James Bond goes to a bar, notices somebody that's kind of staring at him and eyeing him up, and then he goes on with the mission. Well, maybe that person's been trailing him, so that's a reoccurring NPC. And that person could be good agent, bad agent, who knows? Something along those lines. So maybe they've been tailing the player characters or one of the player characters. I think they're fun because they do offer a level of consistency in kind of the unknown. They also offer, if they're bad NPCs, right? If they're evil, they're the villain. It's always fun to spring that onto the player characters. But that goes to, do you want that villain to ever die? You got to be careful because the first time that villain starts the monologue, somebody's going to try to shoot him with the arrow if you're in a fantasy game, or shoot him with a gun or whatever. So if you don't want him to die, don't put him in those situations. Like, it's very tempting as a game master, I think, to want to be able to do that. Like, I want to put this guy in front of the party and and rub it in their face. And then they get killed. And then the GM's like, I didn't want him to die. Like, I had so much more planned for this guy. Don't put him in that situation because it's going to be inevitable. The party's going to be like, roll for initiative, or not even roll for initiative. Surprise round, swift action, boom. You have to just remember, like, what is it that I'm going to do to prevent this person from getting killed? And maybe it's explaining, like, hey, this guy comes out from the shadows. He's got this wall around him, or what. Paint the picture so that way when you do say and bring down the heavy hand, that they can't kill him because they're going to get pissed because you're not giving them the option to do that. That there's a reason. Maybe he's casted a spell. Party doesn't need to know. They'll think they do. And that's when they'll call bullshit. It's bullshit, man. I should have been able to kill him. Why did he survive a 50 hip dive freaking fireball? Well, because before he came out and started monologuing and knowing you guys were going to shoot something at him, he decided to cast this one spell that prevented him from taking 50 plus points of damage. Victor says, but the players will never know it's a reoccurring NPC if they don't play your game all the time. I don't grasp the concept of recurring NPC in con games. Yeah, I wouldn't do it in a con game necessarily. It's too short a time. Your reoccurring NPC is going to be over sessions. Like, you may go 3 or 4 sessions and never ever see that NPC again. But the minute you put them into place, like, and frankly, if there are sessions that lapse, your players are going to forget about them. Unless they really left literally a lasting impression upon the NPCs or the player characters. They're going to forget about them. You almost, as a game master, have to expect like that's going to happen. They're going to forget, and you're going to have to remind them. Oh, you know, this guy, you see this person, blah, blank stares. You recall he or she was the person from session 2 when you went to this bar, when you went to the cave, you rescued those prisoners. This is that guy or that woman. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Marigold always comes back, Rodell says. Spoilers! Ken in a Small Town Mystery. Let's see. When you watch the latest FL episode, you'll understand my NPC's question's origin. Oh, that's... Now I gotta go and watch it. This guy, Shipman, look at him. He already knows how to hook. Guy's a pro. Like, I gotta write this down. How do you do that? Ask a question you already know the answer to, and then say, because you'll find out why I asked that question if you just watch the latest episode of Forbidden Lands actual play. And I'm like, now I gotta go and watch it. And this guy, I tell you, God, unbelievable. Ty says, maybe it's a hint to the PCs that an NPC keeps on showing up in a mystery game. Yeah, for sure. Victor says, but if my PC has never met the NPC, then they are not a reoccurring NPC to my PC. Correct. As a player, I don't care if a recurring NPC exists in a particular con game. Yes, that's for sure. For sure. Yeah, that's the point, right? To be recurring, they have to occur more than once. I think they're great. If you could do it. Sometimes it's going to feel too much, though. Like, hey, your mom shows up, and then she shows up again. Like, what? What's my mom doing here? Delta Green Games, bonds are the way to go. And the thing is with bonds is you don't have to literally have the NPC show up in the game necessarily. They just have to like call them, text them, send them an email. A message gets relayed to the person. Like that's the way that they can get, they can be found as recurring. Yeah. Topic for the pod, the reaction of the latest WotC errata. Okay, I was gonna touch on that a little bit. Dorigo says no. I'm gonna touch on it briefly because I did quite an extensive elaboration last week. And just to wrap it up, I have no idea what's going on with that now. There you go. I have heard now that TSR's whole spiel was in response to Wizards filing a suit against them. And therefore, everything that I explained last week was in response to Wizards of the Coast. It doesn't make any sense to me because of the complaint filed by TSR was for trademarks. Now, I could tell you, I think I even did it last week because somebody in the chat said, hey, it's been dropped. So if I haven't, I will say that the filing by TSR was withdrawn or dismissed without prejudice, and that they were going to refile in a different state. I think the state of Washington, which is where Wizards is located. So the saga continues. There's the other things that people wanted me to bring up too. Law is hard, Sean. Hey, VC, good to see you. It is. That's why I'm not a lawyer, and I don't take legal advice from me. But I tried to find the gentleman that the legal attorney. Like I went through his Twitter feed to see if he readdressed the TSR WotC thing, and he hadn't. So I'm like, I got to do more research to find out who's talking about what. And I'm just like done. Like, I don't want to deal with it. Forget about it. I don't know. What I understand to this point is that my question is, there's a question on whether TSR filed their complaint in response to Wizards and wanting to obtain trademarks, or Wizards. Did I just say that? I'm saying the same thing twice. I don't know if it was in response to Wizards or if they were genuinely going after Wizards and saying, we think these trademarks can be claimed by us. Chicken or the egg. To me, it doesn't really matter. As far as I know, it's been dismissed without prejudice, and then there's talks of them refiling. I don't know if they've refiled. I don't know when they're going to refile. I don't know what state they're going to refile, and I don't know what it's going to say in the complaint when they do refile, if they ever do. Wizards hasn't put out anything official that I know of that you can't just go and figure out. Like Eric Tankar's blog, he keeps up with this shit because he's a retired cop and he has, no offense, Eric, but you got a lot more time on your hands to deal with some of this stuff than I do. So if you're interested, go and check out all that stuff there. I'm done. Until TSR comes up with some cockamamie other thing that they're going to attempt to do, or there's something that comes out of this filing piece for trademarks. I don't know. What else? News. Critical Role. Okay. So people are bringing these things up because there are things like, my hair's getting in my face, can't see. So there's all this stuff that people are bringing up are like, dude, I've seen this on Twitter. Some of the people that aren't on Twitter probably aren't on Twitter because of these reasons. Critical Role has been, if you get big and popular, you're going to get haters. So there's a few things that happen that I could bring up in this show that we can talk about ad nauseum. And Twitter is the best source for all this garbage. There was a book that was released that missed a credit. So Wizards put out Strixhaven, and one of the contributors was not credited in the book. Twister. That's what it should be called. Twitter, RPG community, some of them lost their minds over that. There was a public apology by the person that was responsible for putting those credits in the book. She is from Wizards. She put it out there and said, hey, it's my bad, my fault. We're going to fix it. The next printing will have it in there. It was an oversight. I apologize. Like Twitter, there are going to be people that say accept it. There are going to be people that don't care. And there's going to be people that don't accept it, period. End of discussion. It doesn't matter what they say. Rinse, repeat for pretty much any topic that's out there. Matt Mercer put out an ambiguous tweet. People are stipulating that it was in reference to that because he was like, man, y'all sometimes go off the deep end sometimes, and it's quite ridiculous. People got ticked off at him for vague posting. Didn't like, what's he talking about? What do you do? What, if you are under scrutiny, then you must have done something wrong. I mean, there are comments on Twitter that is just like utterly mind-boggling. Like just him putting something out there, somebody must have said, because you're tweeting that must mean that you did something terrible and in question. Therefore, you're in the crosshairs, buddy. Like, he wasn't even referencing something he did. He's just commenting on like, hey, let's all calm down, relax, quit. That's why I think in some of these online social media circles, you have to be careful how do I do this? Not only how you navigate it. We have our own beliefs. We feel as though sometimes we want to convey them because that's what makes up who we are. If you have those beliefs, fine. If you're basing those beliefs off of a group or a mob and you want to be part of that mob, that is your prerogative. However, do it because it's true to you and what you believe, and not because of the mob. Because the mob will eventually probably cave in on you. They'll turn on you. They won't turn on you. But there are people that solely exist on Twitter to just go after people. And usually it's after people that have conflicting views or beliefs or values than themselves. Not always. And it's not all beliefs or all values. It could just be one. And that may be bad enough, right? There's like, hey, you have this value, you're bad, period. Like, okay, it may be irrefutable in many people's eyes. But I have seen it, and I worry about some of the folks that are like, they kind of lump themselves in some of these more outspoken social communities. If you put yourself out there too far, it can come back and they can whack you. Your own group can come back and whack you on the head. And the reason is because not everything is black and white. It's social media. Sometimes these facts aren't ever substantiated. And people are just quick trigger. I don't want to get into all that space because it's just a mess. But, we've got Critical Role getting larger and people scrutinizing. They had their, what was it, the outro or the intro to the game? Like their new season started. People were up in arms about colonialism and how it was conveyed in the intro of the game. It wasn't in the intro. Like, hey, here's our pre-roll, like naming the stars of the show. And people are like, hey, did you notice that they didn't include any people of color, and it's very heavily colonial based? And yes, it is. Let's, get the pitchforks and all that and blah. And, if, look, I'm not here to debate whether what they did was right or wrong. That is up to you to decide. This is what I've observed. And so now you've got Critical Role fans that are like, and, I used to love Critical Role, and now, but now they're a business, right? So now there's a debate on, hey, you just have a game group that starts out playing D&D. Like if you've ever seen Critical Role's like early YouTube videos, man, it is like night and day, man. It is like, it's quite humorous actually. But they're sitting around playing D&D around a table. The audio sucks. The video sucks. It's like somebody in a basement, right? But now they're the highest paid streamer on Twitch. And they're a business. And they have merchandise. And they have sponsorship. And people say they have a moral obligation to think like a business. And being part of that is diversity inclusion. It's not a game group anymore. Playing D&D. It's a business in entertainment. Not here to determine yep, nope. That's what's going on in that space. So if you're a critter, you have your own opinion. One way or the other. And there are some people that have opinions on that are very, very, very vocal about it. And they will stop to no end to see any other view than their own. And I'm saying that on either side of whatever piece of the fence you're on. It's Matt Mercer. I don't know personally. He comes across on social media as a very welcoming, nice. He's not overly negative. He's, I would say, progressive in his thinking. I've known people that have met him say he's the nicest guy. I don't know. I don't know the guy. All I can go off of is kind of the persona that he leads through his actual play, through his voice acting, whatever, and maybe it's things that I don't observe him doing, which is being a dick or, an ass. Does that mean he's not without his faults? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure we're infallible. Let me rephrase that. We're not infallible. So I don't know. So there's that. If you want to partake in that whole dialogue, head over to Twitter. It's just, sometimes it's just grab the popcorn and see what happens. My opinion, if you ask me, or Sean, where do you stand? Where do you stand on all that stuff? Come on. Hey, Sean, what's the guy from, oh, God damn it. What's the, shit. Shoot, I can't remember the soccer coach from the Apple TV show. There's a press guy in the TV show. God, that's gonna be driving me crazy. I gotta get context. Jason Sudeikis. Not Jason Segel. He I can't, my brain is just not working very much anymore. Oh my God. Doesn't even say in his Ted Lasso. Oh my God. Sean, get there. Ted Lasso, if you haven't seen the show, a great show. But he plays a soccer coach from America who doesn't know anything about soccer. And there is there's a reporter who makes an appearance throughout. He's a recurring NPC in the show that he is very, I can't remember his character's name, but he always introduces himself the same way all the time. And he's got kind of like a very personality. And he shows up and he always paints the coach with a bad brush until he actually has like lunch or dinner with the coach and really understands him. In which case he says, he's probably not a great coach, but he's not going to win the hearts and minds of the fans through his coaching. He'll win the hearts and minds of the fans through his heart because he knows him as a character. So anyways, so I just bring this up freaking tangent as the reporter asking me, Sean Kelly from The Independent, wanted to ask you about the latest blah, blah, blah on Critical Role. They do what they do. And if I don't like it, I won't watch them. And if I feel compelled and I'm passionate about what they're not doing correctly, and I feel betrayed by them, I would probably write a personal letter, maybe a personal correspondence in a constructive manner. In a constructive manner, which means from here. And here. My brain and my heart. And I would say, hey, as a fan of the show, a fan of the characters, the stories, blah, 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 I've noticed over time, you guys have evolved and become, very popular or whatever. And I just want to express that it would be nice and that I value whatever. State the case. Trent Krim. Ty, you hit it. Trent Krim from The Independent. Thank you, Ty. Appreciate it. Trent Krim. What's up, Trent Krim? And then he was always known as Trent Krim from The Independent. I would say, and expect that they're not going to respond to you. And if they do, great. And if they change, great. And if they don't, that's it. Me not buying any Apple products is not going to change Apple and how they do things. Now, somebody would say, but Sean, that's the problem. You gotta organize. You got to get more people that understand the same thing that you do, so that if you gain a bigger following, you can influence and impact that company to the level where they can't ignore you. Fair argument. I just think there are ways that you can do those things, which may have results, and some that won't. And there may be things that you can do that garners the attention of the company that still may not make a difference. And the world's full of hypocrisy. That's Critical Role. Wizards also came under fire this week for releasing errata for a lot of their books that people threw up their hands and went crazy about. I don't have a lot of reference links because, frankly, it's all over the place. I don't know the details. Somebody's like, they're actually, oh, for Pete's sakes, I thought I had I might have the link. No. Comic book. Let's see. Maybe I can find it quick. I think it was on comicbook.com. And it was Wizards of the Coast errata. Maybe that'll get me there. Yeah, it did get me there relatively quick, actually. So I tried to kind of glean what the issue was, because people were blowing up about it. So they released an explanation for why it made several minor changes to several of its rulebooks. The online D&D communities exploded when Wizards of the Coast released several errata documents, making several changes to previously published book. Some of these changes were mechanical in nature, while others removed bits of inadvertently intensive material from past books. However, some players were dismayed to learn that Wizards of the Coast had pared down bits of lore from Volo's Guide to Monsters, a book that provided in-depth looks at popular monsters like Beholders, Mind Flayers, and Yuan-Ti. Trent Krim, Independent. Sean, I'd like to ask you about the latest errata release from Wizards of the Coast and how you feel about them doing that. Trent, Wizards of the Coast owns that property. They can do whatever the hell they want with it. Based on that, I could choose to whether or not to buy their products, whether it's based on my overall interest in the product or whether it stems from the changes that they made. Here's the thing. You want to play D&D the way you want to play D&D in the privacy of your own home, or your own group, or online with your own group. There is no RPG police that's going to come and tell you that you're playing Yuan-Ti, Beholders, Mind Flayers, Orcs, Elves, Dwarves, Gnomes wrong. If you don't play D&D and you 5th edition, you don't buy the books, you don't really care what Wizards of the Coast does, then all this is moot. You shouldn't care about any of it. Will it influence your own Forbidden Lands game? No. Do I think Wizards should have done it? I don't know. I don't sit in Wizards of the Coast. I don't know what, the CEO came out and said, hey, I wrote some of this stuff and I was involved in this and this is why we're doing it. Star Wars, George Lucas, he changed whether Han shot first. Here's the deal. This is what I'm gonna put things. I'm gonna kind of lay down the law here in a second. Right now, if this is your world, I think if these things are what drive you every day, you gotta self-reflect. You gotta look at different things. You gotta have a different outlook. That's what I will say. And if you like this, like if you like the changes Wizards made, and it's awesome, and it really did good. Great, good. That's good. Awesome for you. But if you are getting hung up on Star Wars and how they're rewriting stuff, and the errata for D&D and Critical Role is off the deep end, and I can't believe this or that, I'm telling you, nothing will snap you back to reality any more than a very, very critical life experience. And I hope that none of you have to experience any of that. And I mean this by, having something bigger to have to worry about. I don't want anybody to have to do that. We want our lives to be kind of status quo, the events to be toned down. I was in a motorcycle accident. I hate to bring it up, but you reflect on certain parts of your life that you might look at and go, that's not really that important to me anymore. Or it's not as important as it once was, because I realize there are other more important things. And that's, I think, we just lose perspective. Guilty. Been in a motorcycle accident, and I still get caught up with petty stuff. But we have to remind ourselves that there's bigger shit in life than this crap. There really is. So just calm down. And I know I'm preaching to the choir. I know a lot of the folks here that tune in live or even see this later probably have a good understanding that sometimes we need to just be put in check in a diplomatic way and just say, hey, seriously, is it really worth tying up 4 hours of being online to go bonkers on this? And that's a personal question, and that's a personal choice. You could say, absolutely, Sean, it is. For me, I gotta make a difference in this world, and this is how I'm going to do it. And if that's your thing, then great. That's okay. Like, I'm not, fine and dandy, to each their own. But then also understand that I may not be, well, Sean, then you're enabling. Then you're an enabler. If you're not with me, then you're against me, blah, 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 blah. And it's really, really unfortunate about today's world, because a lot of this stuff is coming down to that. They're like, I don't want to listen to Sean anymore because he doesn't like eggs. I don't know. And I just can't get him to understand my plight. And it's tearing people apart, man. It's really unfortunate, because I think we can have differences. Yes, there are some differences that are just unacceptable, for sure. And I think we're quite aware of what some of those are. But man, I don't want to get into this stuff as much. It is interesting from a sidelines perspective, because I think it's some of the things that are being talked about are things to be discussed. The problem is there isn't a lot of discussion. That's what's missing in today's world, is the discussion piece. That's why it's important that if we don't like a role-playing game, I'll bring this out. I'll bring it back to our RPGs. That's why when people don't like role-playing games, it's important to discuss the reasons why you don't like it, and not just because it sucks. It's crap. I hate the designer. I hate the publisher. That isn't enough to kind of like It's got to be a discussion. Eggs in 5e, keep digging that hole. Yeah, Trigo, you know the deal. I hate eggs. I love eggs, actually. I don't love them. I was allergic to them when I was a kid, just so you know. Some of these are very sensitive topics, and depending on who you talk to, people can get very, 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 very worked up about this stuff. And some of it is right. I'm not saying all of it is wrong, but nobody has to tell you how to play your D&D game. Nobody does. Play it any way you want. If you go to a convention, though, that's kind of a different story. You know, it just goes around and around. Like, because there's very much we're not going to agree on this. And sometimes I think we don't have to agree. We don't have to. We don't have to agree to not get along. Or did I just say that? We don't have to agree to get along. I don't think. I'd like to think that I can have friends that we don't agree with, or we don't agree with each other. I would hope so. But there are just some firm camps, man. That is why with like Gaming and BS and me personally in this channel, I think, and I've always kind of looked at the people that get super, super, super passionate and super, super, super uber fans, it's detrimental. The fanatics. Fanaticism is not always good. You could be a fan of something and still be open to criticism. You could still be open to understanding why somebody may not like that game that you think is the bee's knees. And you can tell them, you're wrong. You know, your opinion's wrong. So how does it feel to be wrong? Like, we can ingest, and I think we do, right? To make light of some of these things. As a matter of fact, I think sometimes being in jest is just poking fun at the seriousness of it all, right? Loosen up. You know, Francis. Loosen up, Francis. It's not the be all end all. There's bigger things in life than whether Thaco, it's another one, forgot. Eggs, 5e, Thaco. Thaco is like for sure. The other ones are rumors. Thaco, Sean, not my thing. Not my thing. But the one thing I'm not going to do is go over to some Discord channel where that's like they think is the true spirit and the way, and go in there and start throwing chairs around with, you know, I hate Thaco blazing on them. It's just not the thing to do. Hey, I heard y'all were up for Thaco. I've come in here to say it sucks. Ready? Let's go. Let's dance. Somebody in our Discord loves Thaco. Hey, that's okay. I don't know how I got on that freaking. Well, it's all the critical role stuff. Wizards of the Coast errata. What else has come up that's been a complete shit show? It's. I don't know. There you go. I think the more I talk, you kind of understand where I am, good or bad. And there's going to be people that listen to me and go, that guy, what a joke. What are you going to do? Sean obviously doesn't know how to internet. Reasonable, private, and constructive thoughts. Amateur? Dude. But, you know, people would make fun of the depends answer, right? Like, for those of you, but I mean, there are some tropes that we have in our own Gaming and BS show, and I'm going through the back catalog to figure out when they started. You know, start at 1, move your way forward through the back catalog. Depends, railroad, trains, you know, Sean hating D&D 5e. I don't know. I don't know where the hell I was going with that. But I guess through time, like the depends, I guess that's what it was. The depends piece is because there's a lot of depending things. I think a lot of us, like you and I here, are talking, we're pretty, I would say we're moderate in a lot of the ways that we think about things. And then there are going to be some elements of that go on the left or right side of the scale. Okay, one end or the other, left or right. It's probably a bad word to use, but discussion. Like you're not going to sway me one way or the other if you just keep beating me over the head with a hammer all the time. Let's have a discussion. Let me understand why this is important, what it means to be important. Because I'll tell you what, a lot of the things that I believe in now aren't some of the things I used to believe in when I was younger, when I was 20, 30, 40. Might not even be what I thought last week, right? Let me understand this. Let me research this a little bit. Let me hear what this all takes place. Another thing, I'll give you an example. This whole Kickstarter bullshit that is going around the internet, I don't understand it at all. That's another thing. We talked about it last week about Kickstarter going to blockchain. And all these creators are like, screw Kickstarter. This is why I'm leaving. But I don't understand why. I don't understand why they are leaving. Well, they're going to blockchain. Yes, I understand that. But why are you leaving? Because, can you move further and deeper? Todd Crapper, Broken Ruler Games, friend of the show, posted on our forum. Hey, man. It seems like the independent publishers are all up in arms about Kickstarter going to blockchain. And I'm like, great. Somebody help educate me on why. Well, because blockchain's bad. Blockchain's bad or cryptocurrency's bad? So there was a tweet that was going around. Oh, God. If I brought this up, man, you guys would crap a pants. Probably, maybe if you've seen it, it's some cryptocurrency, they call them crypto bros, that took a video of all the mining machines that he had in one of 4 places. So he has 4 of these rooms, apparently. He took a video of one, and it was just literally, 4 to 6 aisles and just racks of cryptocurrency mining machines. And he was like, yeah, this is my, one of my four setups, and I can't wait to upgrade them to this next video card. And I'll tell you what, reading the room, there are people like him that just do not give any, he doesn't care about what the internet's going to say. And there's going to be crypto folks that are like, that is awesome. That's super cool. Oh man, I wish I had as many as you did. The circles that I run in were not very fond of the setup. So going back to Kickstarter, CeeLo is the platform that they're exploring for blockchain. CeeLo also is a cryptocurrency that you can actually buy and sell on at least Coinbase. The argument for cryptocurrency is that there are people sitting in their houses or in their data centers and buying up all the graphic cards out there, because a lot of graphic cards can mine and do a lot of number crunching. They can crunch enough numbers, they can actually create their own cryptocurrency, or create not their own currency, but they can say, well, I'm going to mine Ethereum, so I'm going to create my own. It's like minting your own money, right? Hey, if I get enough printers, I'm just going to print $1 million. The only difference between printing $1 million off a printer and actually mining cryptocurrency is one is illegal and the other can be lucrative if they have it mine enough, because, well, as long as it offsets their cost, I guess. But, one Bitcoin is trading for like 46,000 US dollars. So if you can mine one and it doesn't cost you $46,000 to mine one, well, you might make out. But with all that energy, that's the big problem, is the carbon, the energy involved, blah, blah, blah. And for what? Something that doesn't exist is what somebody would argue. Again, another complex discussion. No, it's not, Sean. It's not complex. They're mining Bitcoin, or they're mining Ethereum, or they're mining cryptocurrency. It's taking up energy. It's taking silicon resources. My video card I can't buy. They've driven up the price of video cards twofold. I can't buy one at a reasonable price because all these crypto bros are buying them and putting them in a data center and mining their stupid cryptocurrency. Hey, I get it. I get the frustration. I had to settle for an eGPU that's probably 2 years old and cost me twice as much, probably just for that reason. And so when people talk about the environment, global warming, climate change, blah, 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 yeah, I get it. Okay. Understood. Just don't understand how this is all playing a role with Kickstarter. Well, Sean, they're partnering with CeeLo. They're a cryptocurrency place. Okay. Yeah, maybe, I guess. Yes, they are. But they have a low carbon footprint. They talk about this, but it's not true. It's all marketing spin. I don't believe in marketing. So if somebody sat down with me and said, Sean, I read the white paper. I understand what Kickstarter's future business model looks like by partnering with CeeLo and blockchain. They haven't conveyed the benefits to me as a creator or the benefits to me or to you as a supporter of me, the creator. Therefore, I'm very skeptical on what this whole move is about, because what cryptocurrency involves is, a lot of energy waste, blah, 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 blah. I don't think that's where my moral mind wants to be. I don't want to support a company that does that. Now, newsflash, all the tech out there uses data centers, eating up tons of freaking energy. Yes, Facebook, Google, Microsoft are all trying to find ways to be more environmentally conscious. Some may argue that they're not doing enough. Some may argue that they are. The debate continues, whatever. Okay, that makes me understand the story a little bit. And I think that's kind of it. And I don't mean to belittle that in any way. It's just, I don't think it's been explained in a manner that I understand. I guess I'm just thick and maybe short-sighted. I don't know, whatever. But when something here, let me explain it to you, Sean. I'm all right. Like, okay. Now I get it. I understand. This is why people are up in arms. They're going to go to different options. As a matter of fact, that leads me into Mr. Blake Ryan was nice enough to say, hey, here's a tweet, Sean. And it's this Jason Petrie. Jason's been around for a while. He's done some, I think he's done quite a few games, actually. An indie RPG designer. His works escape me. But I used to follow Jason on Google Plus and probably lost touch with him. But what he says is, based on my read of the current crowdfunding landscape, I suspect that the analog game industry is going to bifurcate. Oh my God, I cannot. Into two distinct platforms. Game Found for our board and card games, while Game on Tabletop for RPGs and LARPs. Both are good sites and should be able to replace Kickstarter. Game on Tabletop, which I was not familiar with. So Blake's like, hey man, there's other options out there that people can consider. Indiegogo too. I don't know why nobody's said Indiegogo, but I was not aware of Game on Tabletop. So absolutely, there's different options, which is great. So my question would be, why don't people use this thing now anyway? I mean, blockchain, cryptocurrency aside, are they a better option now? I don't know. I'm not a creator and I don't use these platforms. So again, I would be naive to say, oh yeah, this is the way to go. But at least bring it to people's attention that there's an option out there. And, 'cause, 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 ' And it looks like it's French based, right? So I should probably change. Here we go. Oh, I got it in English, but I think there's it's either not translating or it has kind of both. Maybe both. Maybe pattern, because some of this stuff is in French still, if you notice down below here. Maybe it just changes the prices. The descriptions are in English. I'm kind of derp. Anyway. If they're based in France, what does that entail? Does it matter? I don't know if it matters, honestly. Thanks, Blake, for pointing that out. I appreciate it. Again, just, hey, here, something you don't know about, Sean. I'm like, hey, thanks. I really appreciate that. BK Dan, hey, good to see you. 2 days after they released the errata, they posted clarification in response to YouTubers. Yeah, and sometimes I wonder how we do things just exacerbates the issue. If maybe Wizards needs to talk more. Maybe they need to talk more. Quit putting out stupid press releases, tweets, blog posts. Maybe they just need to get on freaking YouTube, town hall, open stream like this and say, hey, here's what's coming out. Free League does it all the time for their products. They do it probably more out of promotion than community, hey. But, Wizards being in that spotlight, maybe they just need to do more town. Hey, hey, Wizards. Hey, Wizards, like talking Bullwinkle. Maybe you should get off the text and actually start with the spoken word, with emotions in your face and explaining like, hey, here's why we're doing these things. Shocker, you're going to take heat regardless because guess what? You're Wizards of the Coast. It comes with the territory. You don't want to take the heat, lose a bunch of profit, become Sean Kelly Incorporated, and people might not care because you're the little guy and nobody cares about the little guy. They root for the little guy. When you're the big behemoth, I don't know. Rodelic says you would have to be living off the land somewhere off grid to not participate in the atrocities from modern day companies. It's a fool's errand. And it so truly is. I'm so... I don't know. I'm going to get into this. Maybe somewhat. I don't know if you watch, I watch Yellowstone. It's a TV show on Paramount and it stars Kevin Costner. The show's premise is that Kevin Costner's character, John Dutton, is the largest landowner, I think, in the United States in the TV show. Huge. I think he owns a ranch the size of Rhode Island in Montana. Okay, fast forward. There's a lot of politicking and back and forth, whatever. Good, bad, whatever you think of the guy. In one of the episodes, he's driving down the road. Actually, his son comes into town and there is a protest going on. And his son comes out and shit hits the fan, whatever. John comes into town and picks up a protester and starts talking to her and says, hey, come with me, blah, blah, blah. Actually, I think he bails her out of jail. And so she's like, I protest, it's morally wrong. This is the deal, whatever. And I think it had to do with something. I'm not going to get into why, but anyway, she was protesting. Fast forward another episode and John Dutton's daughter is driving through town and sees a bunch of protesters and they're protesting in front of I think a retail store that sells fur. And they're like, no, fur's cruel, blah, 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 blah. This John Dutton's daughter approaches the woman because she's already met her in a previous episode or earlier on in the episode. She goes, what are you doing? Like, what do you, and she gives her your efforts are ridiculous. And this is why. And she says, now, not to get into the whole episode of the show and the whole series, but essentially the daughter and John Dutton's plight is to keep Montana and the ranch and all this kind of natural. And there's other companies like corporations that want to come in and put in an airport and put in these luxury resorts and all this stuff. And they're trying to say no. So the daughter is like, you want to sit here in front of your retail store and protest first, then go right ahead. But why would you do that when it's not going to do anything to the industry? Like, you're thinking too small. Here, let me give you something to bite on. And of course, there's some ulterior motives at stake, right? But she says, there's one big corporation that's wanting to come into Montana and make it Disneyland. Like, they want to put in resorts and airports and da-da-da-da-da-da. And in so doing, they're going to kill a bunch of wildlife to do it. They're going to plow down trees and animals and all this stuff. You want a mission, you go out, you go and do that and preserve this. Of course, she has a motivation to get her protesters to do that. And she's like, what are you talking about? And she's like, we're talking, hundreds and thousands of acres of land and da-da-da-da-da. And then she's like, oh, okay, well, that's where I need to go. And I think going to Radelk's comment is, we talk about something or, an issue like this, and then, but we'll pick up our iPhone and go, hey, but we don't understand like what goes into making this thing. And, it just stumbles and stumbles. And then, oh, hey, the CEO, like, I bought an Apple phone, because Tim Cook's okay. He's reasonable, but, the other CEO, he's an asshole, and I'm going to boycott that company. It's like, it never ends. And it's like this big circle that you can never really get out of. The only way to do it is if you live in a mountain top in a little tiny cabin and, become a hermit and don't have technology and, industry and grow your own food and live on your own, which is very hard to do nowadays. That's the reason I bring that up. It's like, where does it stop? How does it end? Goes on and on. I heard once Sean said he hates D&D 5e. Thanks, Victor. Let's get out of this deep shit, man. Yeah. I don't know why it goes into these spirals. They relate whole races and even monsters like beholders being evil to racism. So they are adding or deleting content so that nothing is inherently evil. I think this is the general idea. Thank you for pointing that out. I think you're right. I didn't know that, but I thought it stemmed from that. They should have got rid of alignment a long time ago and just base it off the actions of whatever you're dealing with. Let the characters determine whether they're evil or not. It's a perspective. It's philosophy. You want to argue philosophy in D&D? Shit. Ugh. Alignment was just, it might have served a purpose back in the day. I don't even know if it did. Protection from evil as the paladin. But let's admit it, it's stale. It's old. It's not relevant. Get rid of it. Get rid of alignment. You want to get rid of something, get rid of alignment. And the thing is with wizards and the way they execute this stuff is just do it and just, I don't know if they're just better off just doing it and that's it and whatever. And hey, we're coming out with 6th edition. We got rid of alignment. Whether they come out and publicly post it on Twitter or somebody goes, hey, wait a minute. I looked through this book. There's no alignment mentioned. Wait a minute. And then they go off and then Wizards goes, yeah, so what? Hey, you made my Jeep an automatic. Oh, you didn't run it past me. General Motors, you didn't tell me that you were getting rid of the manual transmission. Like, what? Okay. We should have branded by Sean Kelly, I guess. I don't know. RPG hobby. Crazy. Anyways. Where am I? I need to turn this thing on a dime here. Ty says, gaming is my way to escape from reality and reset my head to take on the rest or next week. Sometimes the kind of GM BS is unwanted in my role. I choose the kind of game that helps me reset. Wayne says, weird. I see the point in the real world, but I'm okay with having a fantasy setting with big E, evil, not all. Example, not all. I could see how D&D is a larger audience and felt the need to address this. Jim, being a fan to the point where your identity is totally wrapped up in consumption of someone else's creativity is setting yourself up to be hurt. Yeah. Wayne, just let the Thaco lovers be wrong. Thanks, Wayne, buddy. Jim, hate on Thaco all you want. It's okay to be wrong. Jim likes Thaco. It's just, that's okay banter to me. Jim likes Thaco. Wayne and I don't. Yay, guess what? You know, if I play in Jim's game, I get to make fun of him and say, oh, here we go, Thaco. Jim, can you help me? Because I don't understand this weird math. Oh, man. But this is okay, right? This kind of discussion, like, okay, we can agree to disagree. This is why I like this. This is why I don't like that. And I do understand some of the arguments that take place, but sometimes it's just, it's the approach. Like, ooh, I don't know. Do you think that is a constructive approach? I don't need to be constructive. And that's why there's a lot of people that don't engage on Twitter. It's just like, hey, and in all fairness, YouTube used to be worse. Like, post a video and read the comments. Like, what? Terrible. Radelic says, I've always seen D&D as a toolbox. I don't think orcs were ever completely evil in my game, but it seems like people think you needed permission for that. Yeah, I don't know. Radelic, I was just typing about that farm, haha. Read my mind. Radelic says, my friend went out to wait in line for a new video card for his gaming PC. Out of 5 people, he was the only one not buying it for mining. Man, I get it. Yeah, he's talking about the farm from the Twitter account, the crypto farm. There you go. Food, water, shelter. Radelic, I don't completely know about it either, but I know artists are beside themselves if they don't participate in NFTs because their art is being stolen right and left. People are being scammed with it. Keanu Reeves laughed in the face of a reporter when they brought up NFTs. I think big companies don't use others because they are already established on Kickstarter. Like Cool Mini or Not board game company could never switch. And they carry a lot of weight. Hey, Jim, gotta run. All right, have a good day. World Free League had an issue too lately. Guy was mad at VS and didn't have content warnings. Got to get on with the weekend. See ya, Harrigan. Thanks. Be a positive force in gaming, everyone. Yeah. Mason, the Mythic Horror game. Yep. He thought he could play it with kids. Read the intro adventure and decided to go to Twitter about his grievances. You know, here's one thing I will say. That really kind of, here's the thing. We got to take some personal responsibility for our stuff. We got to be accountable for our stuff. And I say our stuff by that guy buying a book and then going up in arms because there wasn't a content warning. That shit burns my ass. It's not in my humble opinion, it's not the company's responsibility to tell you. Well, somebody would say, yes, it is. They got to tell you about their product. Yes, they market it. They're marketing it to the consumer to buy it. If you don't do your own research on buying something, whose fault is it? I've bought stuff that I didn't realize it was the right thing. Whose responsibility is it? The person that sold it to me or me? Bought a widget doohickey thingy. It's the wrong freaking thing. I spent $50 on it. Can I take it back? Maybe. Is there a restock fee? Maybe I can't take it back and I'm out $50 because I'm an idiot. Come on. a horror, what is it touted as, Baessen? Not gothic horror. It's because they probably put it says Nordic horror role-playing game. But I think they talk about mythic, right? Welcome to the mythic north. So this is like, do people think, oh, it's mythic, so it's like everything in the monster manual is mythic. It doesn't make it appropriate for all ages of kids. Oh, it's the cover of the book. It looks like Clyde, the big red dog. Nice, and the guy's carrying a gun. Come on, man. Come on. Please tell me people fricasseed that guy. Come on. Just come on. Do some research. This is the thing. That's the thing with some of this stuff is do some research. You got like the biggest reference area in the known to humans ever. The internet. Look up a YouTube video. Read a frickin' review. Read up on it. Understand what it's about. Like, this isn't Hansel and Gretel, and even Hansel and Gretel is kind of like, these things were they were created, some of those, like Hansel and Gretel and some of those other ones. Grimm's, not Grimm's. Some of them were created to scare children into behaving correctly. I say that in loose terms, but behaving in a particular way, like behave yourself, or the little wolf, the wolf that hunts Red Riding Hood's going to eat you. Hello. Good God. I can't with those. I just can't with people like that. I can't. I don't have a leg to stand and run a Forbidden Lands game for my family. A 9-year-old daughter is playing a Wolfkin fighter and is looking pick up the cold-blooded talent. Winning? I am never going to tell people how to parent unless I'm like, need to stop, throwing your kids across the room. So mileage may vary. So, hey, but if you're going to pick up a role-playing game specifically for your kids, you probably should put out there like, hey, Twitter universe, I'm about to pick up a game for my kids. What do you recommend? I'm going to probably guarantee one of the responses is going to say, how old are your kids? There's a difference between having kids that are, 2 to 6 and, 13 to 18, 13 to 15. And you'll probably get some really constructive feedback on which products are good for kids in that range, just based on, general high-level 100-foot view. Shit, man, I don't even have kids, and I would probably recommend some ones that are going to be pretty safe. Hear no evil. Why, Sean? Because I've heard that it is very based for kids that are young. The Journeys one, Fantastic Journeys or something along those lines, Mouse Ritter, But keep in mind, some of these games might have, is there death involved? Do you want your kids, no matter what age they are, to be exposed to that type of content? That's a parent question. And I don't know your kids. But just picking up a game and going, screw the publisher, they didn't put in a content warning. Come on. It's like picking up an NWA album and not realizing that the guys swear. Really? Come on. Thanks, Tipper Gore. I've already gone through this shit. I'm an Xer, man. We've gone through this stuff. But here's the thing, right, parents? We're not the parents of other people's kids. So, like somebody mentioned, there's somebody that can't watch The Mandalorian because their parents don't let their kids watch The Mandalorian, but you do. The last thing you want to do is invite that kid over to watch The Mandalorian, right? Like, stay in your lane. Hansel and Grimm are dark. Hansel and Gretel is a horror tale. Yes. Yeah. Here's another, Wizard of Oz. Really creepy. The books are nothing like the movies. And notice that there are more than one book. It's not just the Wizard of Oz, right? It's a whole series. Vaesen. Yeah. I've been told Vaesen, pronounced Vaesen. Vaesen. Oh, it is Vaesen. Okay. My bad. I've heard it. Vaesen. Yeah. Vaesen. That makes sense. You don't have to use the intro adventure, especially if it has adult content or story. You could probably run Vaesen for your kids. You just have to know how to tone it down. I mean, come on, dude. You read it first. Like, seriously? And then if it's not you, sell it. Who wouldn't buy that used, right? Come on. Yeah, use the rules, change the setting. It's very simple. Like, that guy getting his underwear in a bind over that is ridiculous. Come on. I went pouring over the internet and you came across Vaesen for your kids and you're getting bent out of shape because there was no content warning? Get a different game. Just come on. Come on. It's not that hard, Sean. There's only like 2. No, there isn't. There's tons of games out there for kids nowadays. Shit, D&D's like age limit was what, 13? 14? Oh, then the survey came out about how many GMs actually read the adventures before they run it. Oof. I was shocked by how many didn't. They didn't read the adventure? Oh, from Vaesen? Yeah, who knows? Oh man, I gotta get some down for next week's Saturday stream, like some topics. What do we want to talk about? Like something maybe not so serious, but even, those are some of the things that people are probably like, some folks aren't on Twitter and they don't want to get into that stuff, but sometimes it's good to know that it's happening. So they're just, but then I'm not maybe always the best. I talked a little about cons, going to conventions. NPCs, recurring NPCs, talked a little bit about those. Gotta make sure I point out the highlights of the stream that have to do with RPGs. Been on here for 3 hours. I'd hope I talk about RPGs and not blockchain, crypto, Kickstarter, errata. Man, just play the game you want. Don't worry about all this stuff. And you know what? If 6th edition comes out and it's not your jam, then you don't have to buy it. Like, it's okay. The games that you have will last forever. They can. I mean, there's people playing BX, man. This was launched back in the 80s. Freaking a long time ago. It's all right. Anyways, thanks for tuning in. Appreciate it, everybody, for coming by. Let's make next week a little more upbeat. Hopefully the following week won't be full of turmoil where we have to like at least acknowledge it. Yeah. 2022. What game do you want to get to the table in 2022 that you didn't get to 2021? Could have been out for the last 30, 40 years. Could be coming out and you're waiting it to be arrived from Kickstarter. Whatever. Mine is Cold Shadows Twilight 2000. And I'm sure something else in there. And I want to do some live streams. Maybe some of you will even be part of those games. It'd be really great. Yeah. I started watching Wheel of Time. I have not read any of Robert Jordan's stuff, so I don't know how accurate or good it is, but, here's the thing. If people write it off and they're going to do multiple seasons and you write it off after the first season or the first few episodes, and then they cancel it, that sucks. So try to give it some airtime so it doesn't get canceled. And if they make a season 2 and it's better, then great, we all win. Right? But now Cowboy Bebop, I'm not an anime. I don't know what that's all about. It looked kind of cool. I haven't watched it yet, but they canceled it. Boom, done. Netflix is like, didn't get the turnout we wanted. It's done. It's finished. So when you watch it on Netflix, know that that's the last that you'll see of it. I guess there wasn't enough people that binged it in one day. I don't know. Topic, why everybody should play Fate. Ty, I can't even intelligently argue that, though, because I've only played Fate Accelerated. I've never played Fate. Talking you off the ledge, Victor. Yeah. We all got to calm down, right? Let's just calm. Hey, everybody, just calm down, man. Calm down. Everybody need to hit a weed or something, right? Young VC Forbidden Lands, maybe today, never going home. I will run Forbidden Lands. Like, if there is a list of people like, man, I want to play Forbidden Lands in 2022, I will make sure to get people into a Forbidden Lands game. And we'll play like maybe a very short arc, right? Do some exploration, run into a couple sites, and we could end it right there and then pick it up again. Like, it's an exploration game. It may not be this huge, grandiose Curse of Strahd, got to venture through this whole campaign book and find all these objects. And then it eventually comes to an end with, the showdown. Could. We don't know. But I can run Forbidden Lands pretty easily now. I feel comfortable with that system and the mechanics and, not just that, but how would I want to run it? That's a big thing with some of these games is, you could run Delta Green. Yeah, you could run that game, but sometimes there's some subtle nuances that make it a better experience for your players that don't come down to the mechanic. They don't come, don't base it out of a town right away. Well, why? Well, this is why. Oh, but I still want to do that. That's okay. But this is why I'm doing it this way, because it's an exploration game. I don't know. I don't want the players to know where they are. Cyberpunk has burning a hole in my shelf. Pencil Mage, Cyberpunk. I like Cyberpunk. I've never run Cyberpunk. I've got the Veil. I've got the Sprawl. I've got Cyberpunk Red. I've played Shadowrun. I've got Cyborg coming. Probably something I probably want to get to the table as well. Maybe Cyberpunk. Ty says, why should Sean love playing Supers games? Why should Sean I should love playing Supers games? And what super game systems should he play? Okay. If somebody's like, all right, here's the deal, Sean. I know you're not a big Supers fan, but I'm telling you, Masks is the bomb and you will love it. I will run it for you and some people just to show you. I'd be like, all right, cool. Fate is the best Fate I like playing. I think it's time for me to order a pizza. Sweet Victor. Kind of early in the pizza. Actually, where Victor is, it's lunchtime. Not everybody's in the same time zone, people. Come on now. This is the differences between us. Literally. Physical differences. Yeah. So down below, list 1 to 3 games you want to get to the table in 2022. And then YouTube will stay up. You can always we'll come back to this next year and go, hey, did you get them to the table? Why or why not? All right. If you found any value out of this whatsoever, give me a like. It's a thing for YouTube. It doesn't cost you anything. And it's a reminder, because sometimes we'll forget. I'm getting in the habit of, like, if I watch a YouTube video, they get a like. Like, that's simple. It's nothing. They're putting it out there. I didn't pay for it. Give them a like. And if you want to tune in for future ones, make sure you subscribe. You get notifications and stuff like that. But anyways, I'll be here next week, Saturday at 8. I plan on it. I think is that the holiday? It is the 25th. It's Christmas if you are Christian or of the Christian belief. I should still be here. I don't think I have anything going on that morning, so it might be a smaller audience, and that's okay. Otherwise, if you want to take a break from family, just kind of see what we're talking about, by all means, join here. Otherwise, Monday night, Brett and I will be on the mics to talk about NPCs, playing multiple NPCs at once. So I have the GM talking to themselves for 30 minutes as they take NPCs and have dialogue between them. How do you handle that, or do you handle it? So we'll be talking about that Monday night at 8 p.m. Central Time on the Gaming and BS YouTube live. Otherwise, you can subscribe to the audio channel. Ty says, if you play any game where you have abilities more than a normal, then you are super. You are playing a supers game if you think about it. It's debatable. Like Knights Black Agents, supers game. They're pretty tough. Jason Bourne. But if you're talking like super strength, sure, I could probably like that one. Extended NPCs conversations. Yeah. But I'll let you guys go. Go game, have fun, don't game, take a break, whatever it is for you to find a little bit peace and tranquility in your life. So we could all use a little bit more of that. Maybe unplug from the internet for 5 minutes. I don't know. But most importantly, be a positive force in the tabletop RPG hobby. Thanks, everybody.